On the desolate trails of Redemption Pass, 6 outlaws made the fatal error of ridiculing the weathered stagecoach driver who barely spoke above a whisper. They couldn't have known that Samuel "Silent Sam" Kincaid had buried his Colts years ago, after leaving 27 men in shallow graves across 3 territories, or that their mockery would resurrect the man once known as the Pallbearer, a ghost even the most hardened killers prayed never to meet.
Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you.
The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the dusty yard of the Copper Creek stage station as Samuel Kincaid methodically inspected the undercarriage of the 6-horse Concord coach. His movements were deliberate and precise, checking each bolt and spring with the attention of a watchmaker. For 3 years now, he'd been driving the perilous route between Copper Creek and Fort Laramie, and in all that time, Martha Sullivan had never seen the man waste a single motion or speak when silence would suffice. "Sam, have you ever thought about taking a day off?" Martha asked, marking entries in the station ledger from her seat on the porch. Her question earned her that slight tilt of his head that passed for acknowledgement these days. "What would I do with a day off, Mrs. Sullivan?" His voice was soft, almost gentle, the kind that made most travelers lean closer to hear, the kind that made them underestimate him. This suited Sam just fine. The station was quiet this afternoon, just old Jim Taggart whittling on a piece of pine in the shade, and Dr. Henry Wells reading correspondence at a small table near the water trough. The doctor glanced up occasionally, his eyes meeting Sam's in that knowing way they had. Of all the people in Copper Creek, only Doc Wells knew why Sam's hands, now so careful with the delicate workings of a stage harness, had once been whispered about in saloons throughout the West. The peaceful routine was broken by the sound of approaching hoofbeats as Sheriff Wilson McAllister rode into the yard, dust clinging to his weathered face and concern etched in the lines around his eyes. "Afternoon, Martha, Sam." He nodded to them both, then dismounted and hitched his horse to the rail. "Got word from Sweetwater. Dalton Reed's gang has been spotted heading this way." Sam's hands didn't pause in their methodical inspection, but something flickered in his eyes, a shadow so brief anyone else might have missed it. Martha didn't miss much, though. She'd been running the Copper Creek stage station long enough to read men better than most. "Dalton Reed?" she asked, her voice dropping. "Thought he and his bunch stayed north near the Wyoming border." "Times change," McAllister sighed, accepting the cup of coffee Martha poured from a pot kept warm on the stove. "They hit the bank in Preston last week. Latest word says they're moving south, probably looking for easier targets now that the territorial marshals have increased patrols up north." Doc Wells had set aside his letters, listening intently. "How many in his gang now, Robert?" "5 that we know of," the sheriff replied. "Reed, the Blackburn brothers, Lyle Hawkins, and that young one, Jesse Parker. Mean bunch. They don't just rob, they make examples of folks before moving on. Left the bank manager in Preston hog-tied and beaten. Something fierce." Sam's hands finally stilled on the brake assembly he was examining. For just a moment, his fingers traced an old scar on his right palm, a habit none of them had ever mentioned, but all had noticed. "Copper Creek's got nothing worth their trouble," Martha said firmly, as if speaking it would make it true. "They'll pass us by." "Maybe," McAllister agreed, but his eyes drifted to Sam. "Still, it might be wise to send word to Laramie, get some deputies out here just in case." "Takes 3 days for help to arrive from Laramie," Sam spoke softly, resuming his work. "If they're coming, they'll be here sooner than that." The sheriff studied him for a long moment. "You seem mighty sure about that." "Just arithmetic, Sheriff. Nothing more." But his words carried a weight that made the yard feel suddenly smaller. Old Jim chose that moment to stand up, pocketing his knife and the small wooden figure he'd been carving. "Reckon I better head back to the livery before dark. Them clouds rolling in look like rain." He nodded to Martha. "Put it on my account, Mrs. Sullivan." "Just like always, Jim," she smiled, making a note in her ledger as the old man shuffled away. Doc Wells gathered his things as well. "Think I'll do the same. Sam, don't forget to pick up that liniment I ordered for your shoulder. Came in on yesterday's eastbound." Sam nodded, though everyone in the yard knew he'd never complained of shoulder pain in all the years they'd known him. It was just one of those little fictions they all maintained, like pretending not to notice how he always kept his right hand free when handling the reins, or how his eyes constantly scanned the trail ahead and behind, even on the quietest of journeys. As the afternoon deepened toward evening, Lily Turner appeared from the small cabin adjacent to the station where she taught music to the town's children. Her auburn hair caught the last rays of sunlight as she crossed the yard, sheet music clutched to her chest. The sound of her voice calling a greeting was like a clear bell in the dusty air. "Rider coming," Martha announced from her spot by the window, interrupting Lily's conversation with the doctor. "Moving fast?" Sam's hands remained steady as he fed the team their evening oats, but his stance shifted ever so slightly. To most, he still looked like nothing more than a simple stagecoach driver preparing his team for tomorrow's journey. But Sheriff McAllister saw how the man's weight had settled on the balls of his feet, ready to move in any direction. The sound of thundering hooves grew louder, then stopped abruptly at the edge of the yard. A young ranch hand from the Wilson spread reined his lathered horse to a stop, his face flushed with exertion and fear. "Sheriff! Sheriff McAllister!" The boy's voice cracked with urgency. "They're coming! The Reed gang! They hit the Simmons ranch not 3 hours ago, burned the place to the ground. They're headed this way." In the sudden silence that followed, Sam carefully secured the feed bag he was holding, his movements still measured, still precise, but now they carried an entirely different quality, like a mountain lion uncoiling before a leap. "How far?" McAllister demanded. 2 hours, maybe. Less. They're moving fast and, the ranch hand swallowed hard, they're killing everyone who stands in their path. Mr. Simmons tried to protect his family. He couldn't finish. Martha's hand went to her throat. Mother of God. "Get word. To everyone in town," McAllister ordered. "Tell them to bar their doors and windows. Nobody on the streets after dark." He turned to Martha. "Might want to cancel tomorrow's stage run." "No." Sam's quiet voice cut through the tension like a knife. "Keep the schedule just like any other day." They all turned to look at him, but his eyes were fixed on something distant, seeing perhaps not the stage yard around him, but something from long ago. "Sam?" Martha's voice held a question. "Some folks need to learn," he said softly, "that the quietest whip cracks the loudest." Evening crept into Copper Creek like a thief, bringing with it an unseasonal chill that had nothing to do with the weather. The stage station maintained its usual appearance, but tension hung in the air, as thick as the tobacco smoke from Sheriff McAllister's pipe as he positioned himself by the window, occasionally glancing down the darkening road. The few travelers, waiting for tomorrow's stage, huddled near the stove, speaking in whispers as if afraid their voices might carry beyond the station's walls. Even old Jim had returned from the livery, his rheumy eyes darting between the door and Sam's steady presence. As he methodically checked and rechecked, the harnesses hung on the wall. "2 riders coming in from the south," McAllister announced, his hand instinctively moving to his gun belt. The station fell silent save for the soft creak of leather as Sam tested a trace chain, his work continuing without pause. The riders turned, out to be nothing more than traveling salesmen seeking shelter for the night, but their news brought no comfort. "Passed through the Simmons place this morning," the older of the 2 men said, hands shaking slightly as he lifted a cup of coffee. "Never seen anything like it. They didn't just rob the place, they made examples of anyone who stood up to them." "Old man Simmons?" He trailed off, taking another drink. "What about Simmons?" Martha pressed, though her face suggested she didn't really want to know. "They made him watch while they shot his farmhands, then they—" The salesman couldn't finish.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
Doc Wells, who had returned to the station despite the growing danger, spoke up from his corner. "How many dead?" "5 that I counted. Would have been more, but it seems they wanted to leave enough folks alive to spread word about what happens when you stand against the Reed gang." Sam's movements had slowed almost imperceptibly as he listened. To most, he appeared absorbed in his task of checking equipment, but Martha noticed how his right hand kept straying to a spot beneath his long canvas duster, where she'd never seen him carry anything in the 3 years he'd been driving for her. Sue, younger salesman trying to lighten the mood, attempted a joke. "Lucky for us we've got a sheriff here, right?" He chuckled nervously. "Though I reckon even the law might want to think twice about facing Dalton Reed. They say he's got 18 notches on his gun." A strange sound came from where Sam stood, something between a scoff and a sigh. All eyes turned to the stagecoach driver, who had paused in his inspection of a bridle. "Something funny about that driver?" the young man asked, a slight edge to his voice. 18 notches, Sam said quietly, resuming his task. "Man who needs to count that high isn't much of a gunfighter." The salesman's face reddened. "What would you know about it? You're just a—" "That's enough," Martha cut in sharply. "Sam, could you check on the teams? Make sure they're settled for the night." Sam nodded and moved toward the stable doors. As he passed Doc Wells's table, the physician spoke in a voice only Sam could hear. "Your old wounds bothering you?" "Not yet," Sam replied softly, "but they will be." The doctor's eyes narrowed with concern as he watched the stagecoach driver disappear into the darkness of the stable. Lily struck up a soft tune on the small piano in the corner, and Sheriff McAllister moved to the stove where Martha was preparing a pot of coffee. "Martha, a word." He glanced around before continuing in a low voice. "You should know I sent a rider to Laramie, but even if they send help immediately, they won't get here in time." "I know," Martha finished for him, looking toward the stable door. "Robert, about Sam." The sheriff lowered his voice further. "Some secrets are best left buried, but secrets, like corpses, had a way of rising to the surface. This became apparent when 3 local cattle drivers burst into the station, their faces pale with fear. Found Tommy Jenkins's body out by Split. "Rock Creek," one of them reported breathlessly. "Shot clean through the head, execution style. His horse was still saddled. Hadn't been dead more than an hour." The news hit the room like a physical blow. Tommy Jenkins was just a boy, barely 16, who helped his father run the general store in town. "They're closer than we thought," McAllister grimaced. "Martha, maybe now's the time to—" The sound of shattering glass cut through the air as the young salesman dropped his coffee cup. But it wasn't the noise that silenced the room. It was what followed. From somewhere in the darkness outside came the distant but unmistakable sound of gunfire, followed by screams. Sam emerged from the stable, his face impossible to read, but there was something different about him now, something in the way he moved, as if the quiet stagecoach driver was slowly falling away, like an ill-fitting coat. "Sheriff," he said, his voice carrying an authority that hadn't been there before, "you might want to get these folks back to town while they can still make it." McAllister studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, everyone out. Head straight to town, bar your doors." He turned to Martha. "You too." "This is my station," she started to protest, but Sam interrupted. "Please, Mrs. Sullivan, for once don't argue." Something in his tone made her pause. She'd never heard him speak that way before, like a man who knew exactly what was coming, and had seen it all before. As the travelers hurriedly filed out, Doc Wells lingered. "Need any help?" he asked quietly. "Best get your medical bag ready, Doc," Sam replied, beginning to move luggage away from the center of the room. "Something tells me you'll need it before morning." The sound of distant gunfire came again, closer. this time accompanied by the wild whoops of men who had left their humanity somewhere in the dust of their trail. The Reed gang was coming, and with them the end of peace in Copper Creek. As Martha finally allowed herself to be led out by Sheriff McAllister, she looked back at Sam. He stood in the center of the station, as he had countless times before. But now she saw what she'd been blind to all these years. The way he held himself, the deliberate precision of his movements, the watchful eyes that missed nothing. This wasn't just a man who'd seen violence. This was a man who had once been violence itself. The Reed gang didn't so much enter Copper Creek as they infected it. Their arrival brought a hush that swept through the town like a prairie fire, extinguishing all signs of life. Only the lights of the stage station remained bright, a solitary beacon in the growing darkness. Sam heard them before he saw them. The synchronized rhythm of 5 horses moving at a deliberate pace, not the hurried gallop of men running from the law, but the confident stride of predators who feared nothing in their path. He continued arranging the station's interior, creating clear sightlines to every entrance, his movements unchanged as the sound of boots and spurs grew louder on the wooden walkway outside. The door burst open with unnecessary force. Dalton Reed entered first, a broad-shouldered man with pale blonde hair and eyes the color of a winter sky. His doeskin jacket was expensive, but stained with dark splotches that wouldn't wash out. Behind him came the Blackburn brothers, Ethan and Isaac, so similar in their lanky builds and dark features they could have been twins. Lyle Hawkins followed, a squat, powerful man with a face like crumpled leather. Young Jesse Parker brought up the rear, practically vibrating with poorly contained energy. "Well, ain't this hospitable?" Reed's voice carried the lilt of the Deep South gone sour. "Seems most establishments in this charming town decided to close early. How considerate of the stage company to keep its doors open for weary travelers. Sam, placed a lantern on the counter with careful precision. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" "Gentlemen?" Hawkins laughed, the sound like rocks in a tumbler. "Hear that, Dalton? He called us gentlemen." "Your finest whiskey," Reed ordered, dropping into a chair and propping his boots on a trunk meant for tomorrow's stage. "Leave the bottle." Sam reached under the counter, his movements measured and deliberate. He could feel their eyes on him. 5 sets of them watching for any sign of fear or resistance. He gave them neither. "You boys aren't from around here," Sam observed quietly, placing a bottle and glasses on their table. "What gave it away?" Ethan Blackburn grinned, his teeth startlingly white against his sun-darkened skin. "The way you wear your guns," Sam replied, turning back toward the counter. "High on the hip, cavalry style. Nobody out here draws from that position." The room temperature seemed to drop several degrees. Reed's eyes narrowed slightly. "You seem to know a lot about guns for a stage driver," he said, his tone deceptively casual. "Man learns things," Sam shrugged, wiping down the counter with a cloth. Young Parker, clearly itching to prove himself, drew his pistol with a flourish. "Man learns. In things, huh? Learn anything about this?" He spun the gun around his finger, showing off. "Learn that's a good way to shoot yourself," Sam replied without looking up. The gang laughed, all except Reed, who studied Sam with growing interest. "You got a name, driver?" "Sam. Just Sam." "Just Sam," Reed nodded slowly, then without warning, swept his arm across the table, sending the bottle and glasses crashing to the floor. The sound was like a gunshot in the quiet room. "Well, just Sam, you know what I think?" Reed rose, his voice turning ugly. "I think you're lying to me, and I don't like being lied to." Sam finally looked up, his face impassive. "Bottle was $8. The Blackburn brothers burst out laughing, but Reed silenced them with a look. He approached the counter slowly, like a wolf closing in on prey. $8? That's steep for rot-gut whiskey." He reached into his coat and pulled out a coin, flicking it onto the counter. "Here's 2 bits. Buy yourself some manners." Sam looked at the coin, then back at Reed. Still owes $7.75. Isaac, Reed said softly, show our friend here what we do to mouthy stage drivers. Isaac Blackburn grinned and started forward, but at that moment the door swung open again. Sheriff McAllister stood framed in the doorway, his badge catching the lamplight. Evening, gentlemen, he said, calm as Sunday morning. Might want to reconsider whatever you're thinking. A sheriff, Reed's smile widened. In this little dust heap must be our lucky day. Way I hear it, McAllister continued, stepping inside. The Simmons Ranch is missing a few good men. You boys wouldn't know anything about that, would you? Can't say that we do, Reed replied, though his expression suggested otherwise. But I did hear something interesting about the Simmons place. Heard there was a coward there, ran and hid while good men died. His hand drifted toward his gun. You're not a coward, are you, Sheriff? Everything happened at once. McAllister's hand dropped to his holster, but Reed was faster. The shot echoed like thunder in the confined space. McAllister stumbled backward, red blooming across his chest. Robert! Sam's voice cracked for the first time, genuine emotion breaking through his careful facade. Stay back, Sam! McAllister gasped, then crumpled to the floor. Reed holstered his smoking gun. Now where were we? Ah, yes, teaching some manners to our friend the stage driver. Isaac Blackburn moved forward again, cracking his knuckles, but this time something had changed in Sam's demeanor. His hands had stopped their endless wiping motion, his shoulders had straightened almost imperceptibly, and his eyes had taken on a look that made even Blackburn hesitate. Been a long time since I killed a man, Sam said softly, almost to himself. Promised myself I was done with it. Kill him, Reed ordered, annoyed by the delay. Kill him slowly. Blackburn reached across the counter to grab Sam's shirt, and that's when everything changed. Sam's hand moved faster than seemed humanly possible, catching Blackburn's wrist and yanking him forward. There was a sharp crack as Blackburn's face met the solid oak counter. He dropped like a stone, blood pooling beneath his broken nose. Well, well, Reed drawled, though his hand had dropped back to his gun. Looks like our quiet driver has some fight in him after all. Ethan Blackburn and Hawkins spread out, flanking the counter. Young Parker bounced on his toes, eager for action. But Sam stood perfectly still now, his eyes fixed on McAllister's motionless form. Last chance, he said, his voice carrying a weight it hadn't possessed before. Take your friend and ride out. Don't make me break my promise. Reed's laugh was genuine this time. Or what, you'll drive us to death? He drew his gun with lightning speed. I think it's time we... The sound of a shotgun being racked cut through his words. Sam had produced the weapon from under the counter, its double barrels, now pointed squarely at Reed's chest. That's what you had in mind all along, wasn't it? Reed's smile turned cold, hiding a scattergun under the counter. Problem is, old man, you can only kill one of us before the others cut you down. True, Sam agreed. Then, with deliberate care, he set the shotgun on the counter. That's why I won't be using it. His right hand dropped to his side, where no gun had been visible moments before. But now, somehow, a well-worn Colt gleamed in his grip, as if it had materialized from thin air. Been a while, Sam said softly, since anyone called me the Pallbearer. The name fell into the room like a stone into still water, creating ripples of recognition across the faces of Reed's gang. Even Isaac Blackburn, still groggy from his encounter with the counter, stopped trying to stem his bleeding nose. The Pallbearer, young Parker whispered, his earlier bravado evaporating. That's just a story. They say he died years ago. Stories, Sam said quietly, his gun unwavering, have a way of coming back to life. Reed's face had lost some of its color, but his arrogant smile remained fixed. I heard of you. They say you killed 27 men in a single year. Say, you could shoot a man's eye out at 60 paces. If I'd killed that many, Sam replied. "I wouldn't have bothered counting." Ethan, Blackburn, and Hawkins exchanged glances, their synchronized movements betraying their nervousness. They had spread out too far, trying to flank the counter, and now found themselves exposed. "Boy," Sam addressed Parker without taking his eyes off Reed, "I'm going to give you a chance your friends won't get. You're young enough to learn from mistakes. Walk out now, leave your gun, and don't stop riding till you hit Mexico." Parker looked uncertainly at Reed, who spoke through clenched teeth. "You take one step toward that door, boy, and I'll kill you." "Myself." Behind the counter, Sam shifted his weight slightly. The movement was almost imperceptible, but it caused all four men to flinch. "Last chance, kid. Be smart." For a moment, the young gunslinger seemed to waver, then his face hardened. "No one calls me kid." His hand dropped to his gun. What happened next was so fast it seemed like a single motion. Parker drew his gun, clearing, leather with impressive speed. But Sam was faster. Impossibly faster. His first shot took Parker's gun hand, spinning the weapon away in a spray of blood. His second caught the young man's shoulder, spinning him around and dropping him to the floor. Ethan, Blackburn, and Hawkins drew in perfect unison. Sam's gun seemed to speak twice more without him even looking in their direction. Both men stumbled backward, clutching their gun arms, their weapons clattering to the floor. "You've lost your edge, Pallbearer," Reed sneered, though sweat had broken out on his forehead. "Time was, you'd have killed them all." "Still might," Sam replied calmly. "Depends on what happens next." Isaac Blackburn had managed to regain his feet, blood still streaming from his nose. His hand strayed toward his gun. "I wouldn't," Sam warned. "You're slower than the others, and I've got one bullet left." "One bullet," Reed laughed, but there was a hysterical edge to it. "Against the two of us, those aren't good odds, old man. Better than you think." Sam's eyes flickered to McAllister's. Still form. "Robert was more than just a sheriff to me. He was there that day in Black Mesa when I hung up my guns. Made me promise to stop killing. Made me swear I'd find another way." His voice grew softer. "But he's dead now, and that promise died with him." A movement caught Sam's eye. Martha Sullivan stood in the doorway, a rifle in her hands. She had returned despite his warnings, drawn by the sound of gunfire. Their eyes met briefly, and he gave an almost imperceptible shake of his head. She understood, stepping back into the shadows. "Black Mesa," Reed said slowly, recognition dawning. "That's where you killed Jericho Crane and his whole gang. 6 men, they say." 7, Sam corrected. "People always forget about the lookout, and now us, 10. Isaac Blackburn spat blood onto the floor. "How the mighty have fallen!" "Man needs peace," Sam replied. "I found mine here, until you brought war to my door." Outside, thunder rumbled as the approaching storm gathered strength, or perhaps it was just the echo of the earlier gunfire. The wounded men groaned softly, but no one moved to help them. "Way I see it," Reed said, his voice taking on a reasonable tone. "We're at a stalemate. You're good, maybe the best there ever was, but you can't watch both of us at once. The minute you turn to shoot one, the other will put you down." "True," Sam agreed, "if I were still. The man who needed to outdraw his enemies." He nodded toward the shotgun still lying on the counter. "But I drive a stage now, and a stage driver, well, he likes to keep a few surprises ready." Reed's eyes widened as he spotted the thin wire running from behind the counter to the shotgun's trigger. Sam's boot was resting on something, a pedal, and probably salvaged from an old piano or pump organ. "First man to draw," Sam explained quietly, "gets both barrels. Won't even need to aim." After that he shrugged. "Like you said, one bullet left." The silence in the room was absolute. Even the wounded had stopped their moaning, sensing the tension building toward its breaking point. "You're bluffing," Isaac Blackburn growled, but his hand had moved away from his gun. "Maybe," Sam agreed. "Question is, who wants to find out first?" A drop of sweat rolled down Reed's temple. His fingers twitched near his gun, but he didn't draw. The legend of the Pallbearer had grown over the years, but the reality standing before them was somehow more terrifying than the stories. "We could still work this out," Reed said, forcing a smile. "Way I hear it, you used to ride with some pretty rough men yourself. Maybe we could—" "You killed my friend," Sam interrupted, his voice colder than anyone in the room had ever heard. "There's only one way this works out now." Martha had silently entered through the back door and was checking McAllister's pulse. She caught Sam's eye and gave a slight nod. The sheriff was alive. Barely. The knowledge seemed to change. Something in Sam's demeanor. When he spoke again, his voice carried an edge of finality. "I've spent 3 years driving stages through Indian Territory and bandit country, watching how men move, how they think. And you know what I learned?" Neither Reed nor Blackburn answered, but their eyes were fixed on his gun hand. "I learned that the quiet ones," Sam's finger tightened imperceptibly on the trigger, "are always the most dangerous." Thunder rolled outside as Martha worked frantically to stem the blood flow from Sheriff McAllister's wound. Parker lay unconscious, his bleeding slowed by strips of cloth torn from a stage blanket. The Blackburn brothers and Hawkins huddled against the far wall, their injuries making them sullen but no less dangerous. The standoff between Sam, Reed, and Isaac Blackburn had stretched into a deadly silence that seemed to fill every corner of the station. "You know," Reed said, his voice unnaturally calm, "I heard another story about the Pallbearer. They say you disappeared after Black Mesa because of a woman. That true?" Something flickered in Sam's eyes, a shadow of old pain that hadn't fully healed. "Hit a nerve, did I?" Reed's smile widened. "They say she died, say you weren't fast enough to save her." "Catherine," Sam said softly, the name falling from his lips like a prayer. Her name was Catherine. Martha, still tending to McAllister's wound, saw Sam's hands tremble slightly, the first sign of emotion he had shown all night. "Ah, so it is true." Reed pressed his advantage. "The great Pallbearer brought low by a woman's death. Tell me, did she die quick, or—" The shotgun roared its double blast, deafening in the confined space. Reed and Blackburn dove in opposite directions as splinters erupted from the wall behind where they had been standing. Sam's boot had pressed the pedal, but he hadn't aimed to kill, only to scatter them. "That was your surprise under the counter." Reed laughed, rolling to his feet. "Now what?" "Now," Sam said quietly, "we do this the old way." His gun seemed to materialize in his hand again, but this time Reed was ready. Both men fired simultaneously. Sam's bullet took Reed's hat off, while Reed's shot creased Sam's arm, tearing his sleeve and drawing blood. "First blood to me," Reed grinned, but his smile faded as he saw Sam hadn't even flinched. "You know why they called me the Pallbearer?" Sam asked, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent room. "Wasn't for the obvious reasons. Wasn't because I was quiet or fast or deadly, though I was all those things." He stepped out from behind the counter for the first time, his movements liquid smooth despite his wound. "It was because of what Sheriff McAllister taught me back when he was just Deputy Robert, and I was just another angry kid with a fast gun." "Shut up and fight," Reed snarled, but his voice shook slightly. "Robert taught me that a man's shadow always follows him." Sam took another step forward. "But you only see it when there's light." Reed fired again, the bullet splintering the wood near Sam's head. Sam didn't flinch, continuing his deliberate advance. "He taught me that every killer, every murderer, every man who thinks his gun makes him important, they all cast shadows too." His gun barked once more, and Isaac Blackburn screamed, his hidden knife, half drawn from his boot, clattering across the floor. "And if you watch those shadows long enough," Sam continued, his eyes never leaving Reed, "you can see what they're going to do before they do it." "Impossible," Blackburn gasped, clutching his bleeding hand. "You couldn't have seen—" "3 years," Sam continued, his voice steady despite the tension. 3 years I've driven stages through these territories, watched men draw their guns against outlaws and Indians, watched their shoulders tense, their weight shift, their shadows move across the ground. 1,000 little signs that show when a man's about to kill. Fascinating lesson, Reed sneered, but he had gone pale. What did you become, Pallbearer? A philosopher? No, Sam's voice hardened slightly. I became a stage driver because Robert showed me there was more to life than killing. He taught me that a man's worth isn't measured by his speed with a gun or the notches on his belt. He taught me about peace. Peace, Reed laughed harshly. Peace is for cowards. Peace, Sam cut him off, is for men who've seen enough death to know its true cost. Robert taught me that. Catherine taught me that. And for 3 years, I lived it. Until now, Martha's voice cut through the tension. I've got the bleeding stopped, but he needs proper care, and soon... You hear that? Sam's voice hardened. The man you shot, the man who taught me everything I know about being human instead of just being a killer. He's still alive, which means my promise to him still holds. Something like hope flickered across Reed's face. So you won't... But here's what Robert never understood, Sam continued, as if Reed hadn't spoken. Sometimes a man has to break a promise to keep a bigger one. Sometimes peace can only be protected by men willing to do violence. Thunder crashed again, closer now, and rain began to patter against the windows. In that moment, Martha saw and transformation complete, saw the quiet stage driver she'd known for 3 years become something else entirely. The pallbearer no longer seemed like just a legend. I know what you're thinking, Sam said softly. You're thinking that even if I am who I say I am, it's been 3 years. You're thinking maybe I've lost my edge, gotten soft driving stages for settlers and merchants. His gun disappeared into its holster, a holster that somehow seemed more visible now, as if it had always been there, waiting. You're thinking, he continued, that you're still faster than some washed-up legend, that the stories about me were just that, stories. Reed's hand hovered near his gun. No, Sam said. Simply, they weren't stories, they were warnings. Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the room in stark white. In that frozen moment, Martha saw them all like figures in a photograph. Reed coiled to strike, Blackburn bleeding on the floor, the wounded outlaws huddled in their corner. And Sam stood like a man who had finally stopped pretending to be something he wasn't. The shadow had returned. Last chance, he said quietly. Surrender. Face the law. Live to see another sunrise. Reed's smile was terrible to behold. You know I won't. No, Sam agreed, his voice heavy with certainty. You won't. The rain drummed against the station windows, nature's own percussion for the deadly dance about to unfold. Lightning flickered again, and in its stark illumination, Sam's shadow stretched across the floor, long and dark, like the reputation that had followed him all these years. Before this goes any further, Sam said, his voice carrying the weight of experience, there's something you should know about watching men die. Reed's eyebrows rose slightly. And what's that? It changes you. Every time. Each death leaves a mark that can't be washed away. Sam's eyes drifted to the wounded men around the room. That's another thing Robert taught me. Why he made me swear to find another way. Touching, Reed sneered, but his eyes betrayed his unease. Is this how the great pallbearer fights now? By talking his enemies to death? No, Sam replied calmly. This is how he gives them a chance to live. His gaze swept the room. All of you, listen carefully, because these next few minutes will determine who walks out of here. Martha, still by McAllister's side, saw something she'd never witnessed before. Sam was teaching, just as Sheriff McAllister had once taught him. But his lesson was painted in shades of survival and death. Most men, Sam continued, think gunfighting is about who can draw fastest, shoot straightest. He shook his head slowly. But it's about reading, about knowing. As if to demonstrate, his hand moved like lightning, drawing and firing in one fluid motion. The bullet knocked Hawkins's hidden derringer from his hand before the man could fully produce it from his vest pocket. Like knowing when a man's about to do something stupid, Sam added quietly. Hawkins cursed, clutching his newly bleeding hand. You've been watching us, Reed realized aloud. All this time we've been talking, reading us like you said. 3 years driving stages, Sam nodded. You learn to read men, the way they stand, the way they breathe, the way their eyes move. His voice took on an instructor's tone, like how your left foot shifts slightly before you draw, or how Blackburn's jaw tightens when he's about to try. Something foolish, Reed's face darkened. You think knowing our tells makes you invincible? No, Sam replied, but it means I can do this. His gun disappeared into its holster again. He turned his back on Reed, walking to where Martha was tending McAllister with measured steps. I wouldn't, Sam said without turning. Your weight's on your back foot. You'd miss. Reed's hand froze halfway to his gun, his face a mask of frustrated rage. You're just guessing. Am I? Sam knelt beside McAllister, checking his pulse. Your breathing changed, quickened. Your spurs clinked when you shifted your weight. The floorboard under your right boot creaked. He turned, meeting Reed's eyes. Little things, things most men never notice. But Robert noticed them, taught me to notice them too, turned me from a fast gun into something else entirely. A stage driver, Reed spat. A student, Sam corrected. Every passenger who rode in my coach taught me something. How cowards telegraph. Their fear. How liars can't keep their stories straight. And how killers, he looked directly at Reed, can't keep their eyes off their target. As if to prove his point, Reed's gaze darted to Sam's gun hand, then back to his face. The pallbearer, one of the wounded Blackburn brothers, whispered. They say he could shoot a man's gun hand at 50 paces in pitch darkness. Could, Sam. Agreed. Can. Because Robert taught me that in darkness you don't need to see, you listen, you feel, you know. To demonstrate, he closed his eyes. Right now, Blackburn is trying to inch toward the shotgun shells by the door. Hawkins is thinking about making a break for the window. And you, Reed, his eyes opened. You're wondering if you can get to that second gun in your belt before I can draw. The outlaw's face went pale. No one had seen the hidden backup weapon tucked into the small of his back. How? Reed started. The way your coat hangs, the slight bulge, the way you keep adjusting your belt. Sam's voice was almost gentle now. Details, always details. Martha spoke up from where she worked on McAllister. The sheriff's stable, but his pulse is weak. He needs a doctor's office. Proper tools. Sam nodded without taking his eyes off Reed. Then it's time to end this, one way or another. You're against all of us? Reed said, but his voice lacked conviction. Don't need to be. Already know what you're all going to do. The Blackburns will surrender. They're in too much pain to fight. Hawkins will try something desperate and get himself hurt worse. And you, he paused, you'll go for your gun because your pride won't let you do anything else. You're awfully sure of yourself, Reed growled. No, Sam corrected. I'm sure of... You gay men like you, they're all the same. Think their reputation makes them special. Think being feared makes them important. He shook his head slowly. But fear is just another tell, another shadow to read. Lightning flashed again, and this time, when the thunder rolled, it seemed to shake the very foundations of the station. The rain intensified, drumming against the roof like 1,000 impatient fingers. Last chance, Sam said quietly. Because once this starts, all the lessons in the world won't help you. Once this starts, I stop being the stage driver, stop being a student. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. I become what I was before, what Robert tried so hard to help me leave behind. And what's that? Reed asked, though his face suggested he already knew the answer. Sam's reply was simple, final. Death walking. The moment shattered like glass hitting stone. Hawkins made his break for the window, his movements telegraphed seconds before he began. Isaac Blackburn reached for a hidden knife in his boot with snake-like speed, and Reed went for his backup gun with practiced efficiency, but Sam was faster. He'd been faster 3 years ago, and time hadn't changed that truth. His first shot caught the window latch, dropping the heavy wooden shutter and blocking Hawkins's escape. His second knocked the knife from Blackburn's hand, sending it spinning across the floor with a sound like a bell. And his third sent Reed's hidden gun, flying in a spray of blood and splinters from the outlaw's belt. All 3 shots had come so close together they sounded like a single rolling thunderclap. "Jesus Christ," Ethan Blackburn whispered. "That's 3 bullets," Reed snarled, clutching his bleeding side where the gun's hammer had torn his flesh as it was shot away. "How many you got left, Pallbearer?" "Enough," Sam replied simply. "More than enough." But Martha, still watching from her position near the wounded sheriff, saw something the others didn't, a slight tightening around Sam's eyes. He'd fired 3 shots in impossibly quick succession, and even legends had their limits. "You're not as fast as you used to be," Reed taunted, seemingly reading the same signs. "The old pallbearer would have killed us all by now." "Maybe," Sam agreed. "Or maybe Robert's lessons went deeper than you think." Thunder crashed outside, as if emphasizing his words. The storm had reached its peak, rain hammering against the windows with renewed fury. In the dim light, shadows danced across the walls like restless spirits. "Your reputation," Reed continued, his voice taking on an almost conversational tone, "says you never miss, never waste a bullet. But you just used 3 shots, and we're all still breathing." "Wasn't trying to kill you," Sam replied. "Not yet." That brought Reed up short. "What?" "Giving you a chance to see what you're up against, to make the smart choice." Sam's eyes swept the room. "All of you. Because what happens next, that's on your heads, not mine." The Blackburn brothers exchanged glances, then slowly raised their hands. "We surrender," Ethan said. "The kid was right. This ain't worth dying over." "Cowards," Reed spat, but Hawkins was already nodding agreement with the Blackburns. With smooth efficiency, Sam pulled 2 pairs of handcuffs from his saddlebags where they'd hung by the door all evening. He slid them across the floor to the Blackburns. "Put them on each other," he ordered. "Tight. I'll know if you don't." As the brothers complied, Hawkins made his move. He'd been inching toward a broken bottle, its jagged edge gleaming in the lamplight, but before he could grasp it, Sam's boot came down on his wrist. 3 years, Sam said softly, applying pressure until Hawkins gasped in pain. 3 years I watched men like you plan desperate things. Saw it in their eyes, their hands, the way they looked at broken glass or empty bottles. He increased the pressure slightly. "Amazing what a man learns driving a stage through outlaw territory." "You're enjoying this," Reed accused. "All that. Talk about peace, about Robert's lessons. You're loving every minute of being the pallbearer again." For the first time, something like doubt flickered across Sam's face. Martha saw it, and her heart clenched, because Reed was right. There was a part of Sam that had awakened, a deadly part that moved with the fluid grace of a predator. "Maybe," Sam admitted quietly. "Maybe that's why Robert made me promise to stop, because he saw what I couldn't, how easy it is to become what you're fighting." "Then you're no better than us," Reed pressed his advantage. "Just another killer with a fancy name." "No!" The word came not from Sam, but from Martha. The station manager looked up from tending McAllister, her hands bloody but her eyes clear. "You're wrong about him. Dead wrong." She rose to her feet, facing. "Read directly. I've watched this man drive stages through blizzards to get medicine to sick children. Seen him stand down drunk cowboys without drawing his gun. Give up his seat to pregnant women while he rode on top through thunderstorms." Her voice grew stronger. "That's not a killer wearing a driver's mask. That's a good man wearing the shadows. Gun. The words seemed to hang in the air, heavy with truth. Even Reed appeared momentarily at a loss. "Cuff him," Sam ordered Reed, tossing another pair of handcuffs across the floor. "Behind your back. You try anything clever, and I'll show you just how much of the pallbearer is still in me." Reed, his side still bleeding from where his own gun had torn his flesh, complied with shaking hands. The Blackburn brothers sat quietly in their corner, their own cuffs glinting in the lamplight. "You really think this ends with us behind bars?" Reed laughed as the cuffs clicked shut. "The minute word gets out that the pallbearer is alive, every gunslinger from here to the Mississippi will come looking for you. Your quiet life, your peace, it's over." "Maybe," Sam agreed. "But right now, all I care about is getting Robert to a doctor. The rest," he shrugged, "the rest is tomorrow's problem." "Then you're a fool," Reed sneered, "because tomorrow's problems have a way of showing up today." As if on cue, hoofbeats thundered outside the station, many hoofbeats, growing louder by the second. "Ah," Reed's smile was terrible to behold. Right on time. Sam's expression didn't change, but his grip tightened almost imperceptibly on his gun. "Martha," he called softly, "get Doc and Robert out the back, now." "But Sam," Martha started to protest. "The rest of Reed's gang," he said, quietly. "The ones who weren't with him at the Simmons place. The ones I should have known were coming." His eyes met hers. "Get them out, please." The hoofbeats stopped outside. Bootsteps approached the station door, accompanied by the jingle of spurs and the metallic click of weapons being readied. "Well, pallbearer," Reed's smile widened. "Still, think you can read every man's intentions?" "No," Sam replied, moving to stand between the approaching footsteps and his wounded friend. "But I can read yours, and I know what's coming through that door isn't near as dangerous as what's already inside." Lightning flashed once more, and in its brilliant glare, the pallbearer's silhouette seemed to grow, spreading across the floor like a promise or a warning. The station door creaked open slowly, deliberately. Through the gap came the gleam of gun barrels. Not just one or two, but many of them. The storm's fury painted everything in shades of shadow and lightning, turning the armed men into looming silhouettes. "Quite a reunion," the lead figure drawled, stepping into the light. The figure who stepped through the door wore a cavalry officer's coat with the insignia torn off. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a face weathered by sun and lined with calculated cruelty. A distinctive white scar ran from his right eye to the corner of his mouth, pulling his features into a permanent half-sneer. "The legendary pallbearer," the man said, his voice carrying the refined edge of Eastern education gone to seed. "Driving stages in the middle of nowhere, I'd have ridden right past if our mutual friend hadn't sent word." "Major Clayton," Sam said quietly, his face expressionless despite the surprise in his eyes. "Still wearing a uniform you dishonored." 6 more men filed in behind Clayton, spreading throughout the station with practiced precision. Martha, still trying to help Doc Wells move McAllister, counted the weapons, all trained on Sam. Clayton surveyed the scene, the handcuffed outlaws, the wounded men, the blood-soaked floorboards. "I see you haven't entirely abandoned your old habits," he observed, running a gloved finger along the edge of a table, "though your choice of venue has significantly diminished." "Nobody's going anywhere," Sam said, his gun still held steady despite the overwhelming odds. "Not until the doctor gets McAllister to safety," Clayton laughed, a sound without humor, touching concern for the local lawman. "The Sam Kincaid I knew wouldn't have wasted a second thought on some backwater sheriff." "You never knew me," Sam replied, "just like I never really knew you until Fort Griffin." Something dark flickered across Clayton's face at the mention of the name. "Ancient history," he dismissed with a wave. "We have more pressing business." "How'd you find me?" Sam asked, though his eyes suggested he already knew the answer. Clayton gestured toward Reed, who sat handcuffed and smiling despite his wounds. "Our enterprising friend Mr. Reed has been working for me these past few months. when his investigations led him to rumors of a stage driver with peculiar talents. I became intrigued. You're working with criminals now? Sam's voice carried a thread of disgust. Even for you, that's low. Criminals, patriots, labels change with the times. Clayton shrugged. Mr. Reed provides certain services that the government, in its official capacity, cannot openly sanction. Martha had managed to ease McAllister toward the back door, Doc Wells supporting his other side. One of Clayton's men moved to block in their path, but Clayton raised a hand. Let them go, he ordered casually. This is between old colleagues. As Martha and the doctor struggled with McAllister's unconscious form, Clayton turned his attention back to Sam. You look well, considering. Last I heard, you were drinking yourself to death in some border cantina after that unfortunate business with Miss Chambers. Sam's composure cracked for an instant, a barely perceptible tightening around his eyes at the mention of Catherine's name. Don't speak of her, he said, his voice dangerously soft. Still a sensitive topic, I see. Clayton smiled, revealing a gold tooth. Unfortunate. What happened? But then, these things happen in our line of work. Our line of work, Sam repeated. I was a Union scout, then a marshal. You were an officer who betrayed his oath. Such self-righteousness from a man with 27 notches on his gun. Clayton sighed theatrically. Or was it more? I always suspected you stopped counting at some point. What do you want, Clayton? The major removed his gloves methodically, folding them with precise movements before tucking them into his belt. The Beckworth papers, he said simply. I know you have them. For the first time, genuine surprise registered on Sam's face. The Beckworth papers were destroyed 5 years ago. We both know that's not true, Clayton replied, his casual demeanor slipping to reveal something harder beneath. You were too smart for that, too cautious. Sam's eyes narrowed slightly. Even if I had them, what would they be worth now? The war's been over for decades. Reed laughed from his position on the floor. Some wars never end, driver. The Beckworth papers contain more than just troop movements and artillery positions, Clayton explained. They contain names, informants, agents who operated on both sides, some of whom occupy influential positions today. Blackmail, Sam said flatly. That's what this is about? Insurance, Clayton corrected. Leverage, power. Call it what you will. Outside, the storm had begun to abate, the thunder more distant now. Through the window, Sam could see Martha and Doc Wells had reached the doctor's buggy with McAllister. The sight seemed to resolve something in him. The papers were destroyed, he repeated, just like they were supposed to be. Clayton's pleasant facade dropped entirely. Don't lie to me, Kincaid. We found Jessup last month, still living under an assumed name in St. Louis. Before he died, he told us everything. How you took the papers after Fort Griffin. How you promised to make sure they never fell into the wrong hands. Sam's expression remained unreadable, but something shifted in his stance. A subtle change that only someone who knew him well would notice. Jessup always did talk too much, he said quietly. He also mentioned, Clayton continued, advancing a step closer, that the papers contained something else, something even more valuable than names. And what would that be? The location of the Confederate Treasury gold that disappeared in the final days of the war. Clayton's eyes gleamed with naked greed. 15 million in gold coins, never recovered, never found, almost as if someone wanted it to remain hidden. Sam's laugh was unexpected, short and genuine. All this time, that's what you've been chasing? Rumors and ghost stories? The gold is real, Clayton insisted, and the location is in those papers. If such gold existed, Sam said carefully, don't you think someone would have found it by now? Unless the only people who knew its location chose to keep it secret. Clayton's voice hardened. People like Matthew Beckworth, who took that secret to his grave, and people like you, who kept his papers instead of destroying them. Sam's hand hadn't moved from his gun, despite the overwhelming odds against him. And if I said I don't have the papers, that they really were destroyed, Clayton signaled to his men, who drew closer, tightening the circle around Sam. Then we'd have to insist on searching every inch of this station. Your lodgings, your belongings, your stage routes. His smile turned cruel. And if we still didn't find them, we might have to extend our search to include others. The station manager, perhaps. The wounded sheriff. The good doctor. Sam's eyes took on a dangerous glint. Touch any of them, and papers will be the least of your concerns. Still the protector, Clayton mocked. Did adopting this pathetic town help ease your conscience after what happened to Catherine? After what happened to all of them at Fort Griffin? One of Clayton's men, older than the others with a grizzled beard and wary eyes, shifted uncomfortably at the mention of Fort Griffin. Boss, he said quietly, maybe we shouldn't— Silence, Packer, Clayton snapped without taking his eyes off Sam. You of all people should want this settled. Sam's gaze flicked to the man called Packer, recognition dawning. Thomas Packer, he said. Last time I saw you, you were riding south with blood on your hands. War makes for strange choices, Kincaid, Packer replied, his voice rough with old regrets. Just like it did for you. Enough reminiscing, Clayton cut in. The papers, Kincaid. Last chance before this gets unpleasant. Sam seemed to weigh his options, eyes surveying the men surrounding him, gauging distances, angles, possibilities. You're not leaving this place with those papers, he said at last. Not today, not ever. Such certainty, Clayton sneered, from a man outgunned 7-1. Wouldn't be the first time, Sam replied evenly. Reed laughed from his position against the wall. You don't have enough bullets, Pallbearer. Not even you can take on Clayton's whole crew. Don't intend to, Sam said, his eyes never leaving. Clayton, because the major here is going to order his men to stand down. Clayton's laugh was genuine. And why would I do that? Because of what's in those papers, Sam replied. The parts Jessup didn't know about. The parts that would interest the federal marshals quite a bit, especially the sections detailing the actions of a certain Union major who sold information to both sides. The color drained from Clayton's face. You're bluffing. Beckworth was thorough, Sam continued, his voice calm. Kept records of every transaction, every meeting, every payment, including yours. A tense silence filled the station. The storm outside had finally passed, leaving only the drip of water from the eaves and the labored breathing of the wounded. Boss? One of Clayton's men asked uncertainly. Clayton's face had transformed, the calculated charm replaced by naked rage. Kill him, he ordered. Kill him now. What happened next would later be described differently by everyone who witnessed. Some would say, Sam moved faster than humanly possible. Others would insist that Clayton's men hesitated at the critical moment. The truth, as always, lay somewhere in between. Sam's gun barked twice in rapid succession, taking down the closest of Clayton's men with non-lethal wounds to their gun arms. As the others raised their weapons, he kicked over a table, diving behind it as bullets splintered the wood around him. In the confusion, Packer made his move, but not against Sam. The grizzled veteran turned his gun on two of Clayton's own men, dropping them with quick, precise shots. Traitor! Clayton bellowed, drawing his own sidearm and firing at Packer, who ducked behind a support beam. Always was. More your style than mine, Major, Packer called back, returning fire and forcing Clayton to take cover. The remaining men scattered, seeking positions around the station. Sam used the distraction to move behind the counter, where the spent shotgun still lay. Thought you might remember Fort Griffin differently than the Major tells it, Sam called to Packer. Hard to forget watching your commanding officer order the execution of prisoners, Packer replied, keeping his head down as bullets whizzed overhead. Harder still to forget helping him do it. Clayton's laugh was edged with madness now. Still clinging to your pathetic morality, Packer? After all you've done, you're as stained as I am. Maybe, Packer acknowledged, reloading his revolver with practiced efficiency. But it's never too late to choose a different path. Isn't that right, Pallbearer? That's what Robert taught me, Sam agreed, checking his own ammunition. Man always has a choice. In the corner, the Blackburn brothers had pressed themselves flat against the wall, trying to stay clear of the crossfire. Reed, however, was attempting to maneuver his cuffed hands under his legs to bring them in front. Sam noticed, calling out, "I wouldn't, Reed. When this is over, you'll want to be seen as a captive, not a combatant." "Listen to him," Packer advised. "Kincaid always could read a situation better than most." "Touching reunion," Clayton sneered from his position behind an overturned bookcase. "The Honorable Thomas Packer and the legendary Pallbearer finding common cause. Tell me, Kincaid, does Packer know what really happened to Catherine Chambers?" Sam's hands stilled momentarily on his gun. "He knows you ordered her death," he replied, his voice dangerously soft. "Is that what you've been telling yourself all these years?" Clayton laughed, the sound brittle and cruel. "That comforting fiction that keeps you sane? That lets you sleep. At night—" "I was there," Sam said, tension evident in every line of his body. "I saw your men." "You saw what you expected to see," Clayton fired back. "A convenient enemy, a clear villain. So much easier than facing the truth." "What truth?" Packer asked, glancing between them. "That Catherine Chambers died because the great Pallbearer made a mistake," Clayton said, satisfaction dripping from each word. "He identified the wrong men, targeted the wrong group. All his famous attention to detail, his legendary ability to read men, and he completely misread the situation. By the time he realized his error, it was too late. The station fell silent except for the distant drip of rainwater. Even Reed had stopped his struggles to listen. "You're lying," Sam said. But there was the faintest tremor in his voice. "Am I?" Clayton pressed his advantage. "Ask yourself, why would I have wanted Catherine dead? What possible purpose would it have served? She knew nothing of value, meant nothing to our operation. She was just a schoolteacher who had the misfortune to catch the eye of the famous Samuel Kincaid. If not you, then who?" Sam demanded, but doubt had crept into his voice. "The Wallace brothers," Clayton replied. "Local criminals with a personal grudge against the schoolteacher who had testified against their youngest brother the previous year. They'd been planning their revenge for months." He leaned around his cover slightly, trying to get a clear view of Sam. "Check the papers if you don't believe me, Kincaid. Beckworth documented it all. Your mistake, the wrong men killed, the desperate cover-up that followed. It's all there in black and white." Sam's silence was answer enough. Clayton's laugh held genuine delight. "You didn't know," he realized. "All these years, you've been carrying that guilt, that rage, and you never even read the full report." "I read enough," Sam replied, but the steel had gone from his voice. Packer looked troubled. "Kincaid, is he telling the truth? About Catherine?" Before Sam could answer, the station door burst open. Martha stood silhouetted against the morning light, holding McAllister's shotgun with steady hands. "Sam," she called, "the doctor says McAllister's asking for you, says it's important." Clayton seized the opportunity, raising his gun to target Martha. Sam reacted instantly, firing twice. The first shot knocked Clayton's gun from his hand. The second splintered the beam next to his head, a deliberate miss that sent splinters flying into the Major's face. "Martha, get down!" Sam shouted, as the remaining gunmen turned their attention to the new threat. Instead of ducking away, Martha stepped fully into the station and fired the shotgun. The blast caught one of Clayton's men in the legs, dropping him with a howl of pain. Packer used the distraction to take down another with a clean shot to the shoulder. In moments, the odds had shifted dramatically. Only Clayton and one gunman remained in the fight, now outmatched and outpositioned. "It's over, Clayton," Sam called. Tell your man to drop his weapon." "It's never over," Clayton snarled, blood running from where wood splinters had cut his face. "Not between us." "Maybe not," Sam acknowledged, "but today, here, now, it's finished." Clayton glanced at his remaining man, then at the fallen bodies around the room. Calculation replaced rage in his eyes. "Jenkins," he ordered his last gunman. "Stand down." The man looked uncertain. "Boss?" "Do it," Clayton insisted. "Live to fight another day." Slowly, reluctantly, Jenkins lowered his weapon. Sam stepped out from behind the counter, his gun trained on Clayton. "On the floor, both of you. Face down, hands behind your backs." As they complied, Martha moved to Sam's side, the empty shotgun still clutched in her hands. "McAllister's awake," she said quietly. "Doc Wells got the bullet out. He's weak, but he'll live." Relief flickered across Sam's face. "Good, that's good. He said to tell you he heard everything," Martha continued. "Said something about a promise, still holding." Something complex passed across Sam's features. Relief mingled with resignation and the faintest trace of disappointment. Packer emerged from his cover, keeping his gun trained on Clayton. "What now, Kincaid?" "Now we clean up." "This mess," Sam replied, producing more handcuffs from a drawer beneath the counter. "Secure them all. The territorial marshal will be through here in 2 days on his regular circuit." As Packer helped bind the remaining men, Clayton continued to speak, his voice carrying across the station. "You still haven't answered my question. Pallbearer, where are the Beckworth papers?" "Safe," Sam said simply, "beyond your reach." "You know I'll escape whatever prison they put me in," Clayton warned. "You know I'll come back for them, and for you." "You can try," Sam acknowledged, securing the cuffs around Clayton's wrists with perhaps more force than necessary. When all the men were secured, Packer turned to Sam with troubled eyes. "What he said about Catherine, about Fort Griffin, was any of it true?" Sam was silent for a long moment, his face unreadable. Finally, he looked at Packer directly. "Some wars never really end, Thomas. Some questions don't have clean answers." "That's no answer at all," Packer pressed. "It's the only one I have right now." Sam holstered his gun for the first time since the standoff began. "What matters is the choice we make next." Packer studied him, then nodded slowly. "Fair enough." He glanced at his own gun, then carefully set it on the counter. "I reckon I've got some explaining to do when the marshal arrives." "Reckon you do," Sam agreed. "But a man who chooses to do the right thing, even late in the game, that counts for something." Martha, who had been watching this exchange, spoke up. "The whole town will have heard the shooting. They'll be coming soon to see what happened." "Let them come," Sam said quietly. "It's time for truth, one way or another." As if on cue, the first rays of sunrise broke through the eastern windows, illuminating the station's interior. The warm light revealed the carnage of the night, broken furniture, blood-stained floorboards, shattered glass, but also the 3 people still standing, Sam, Martha, and Packer, linked now by events that would forever change Copper Creek. "Sam," Martha said hesitantly, "when the townspeople come, what will they see? The stage driver or the pallbearer?" Sam looked down at his hands. Hands that had taken life and saved it in equal measure over the years. Hands that had held reins steady, through mountain passes and gun grips, steady through firefights. "They'll see the truth, Martha," he said finally, "just like I need to." Clayton laughed from his position on the floor. "And what truth is that, Kincaid? That you've been living a lie these past 3 years? That everything you built here was founded on mistakes and false assumptions?" "No," Sam replied, his voice finding its strength again. "The truth that a man isn't defined by his mistakes. He's defined by what he does after he makes them." He turned to Martha, something vulnerable in his eyes that hadn't been there before. "I need to see Robert," he said. "There are things I should tell him, things I should have told him years ago." Martha nodded, understanding in her eyes. "He's waiting for you." As Sam moved toward the door, the sound of approaching townspeople could be heard. Voices calling to each other, questions being shouted, boots on the packed dirt of the main street. "Kincaid," Clayton called after him. "This isn't over. The papers are exactly where they need to be," Sam finished for him, pausing at the threshold. "Some secrets belong to the past, Major. Some ghosts need to rest." With that, he stepped out into the morning light, leaving the shadows of the station, and perhaps some of his own, behind him. The territorial marshal arrived 3 days later, not 2, delayed by flooding along the southern route. By then, Copper Creek had transformed from a quiet way station to a buzzing hive of speculation and rumor. The telegraph office had been working overtime, sending messages to newspapers as far away as Denver and St. Louis, all carrying variations of the same shocking headline: "The Pallbearer lives, legendary gunfighter unveiled as humble stage driver." Sam sat on the doctor's porch, watching the marshal's wagon roll down the main street, flanked by 4 deputies. The morning sun caught the tin star on the lawman's chest as he stepped down, adjusting his hat against the glare. Marshal Lawrence. Tyson was a legend in his own right, a man who had brought order to the territories through a combination of iron will and scrupulous fairness. "You're looking better than I expected," Tyson said, climbing the steps to join Sam. "Last time I saw you was in that Nogales cantina. Thought you wouldn't last the month." "Things change," Sam replied, rising to shake the older man's hand. "So I hear." Tyson gestured toward the town, where people were gathering to watch the procession of prisoners being transferred from the makeshift jail to the marshal's wagon. Quite a story making the rounds. Clayton, Reed, the Blackburns, all caught by the same man. "Had help." Sam nodded toward where Martha supervised the loading of the eastbound stage, and then to the doctor's office where McAllister was recovering. "Couldn't have done it alone." Tyson studied him with shrewd eyes. "Never figured you for the stage-driving type. Never figured myself for it either." A ghost of a smile touched Sam's lips. "But a man needs work, and it turns out I've got a knack for handling a 6-horse team, and for handling situations most men wouldn't survive," Tyson added. "Some things don't change." Doc Wells emerged from his office, wiping his hands on a clean towel. "Marshal, good to see you made it. Sheriff's awake if you want to speak with him." "In a moment, Doctor." Tyson kept his eyes on Sam. "First, I'd like a word with Mr. Kincaid here. Privately." Wells nodded and retreated inside as Tyson settled into the chair beside Sam's. "There's more to this than a simple stagecoach robbery gone wrong," the marshal said, keeping his voice low. "Clayton was working for the government again, unofficially. Special assignments for people with considerable influence." Sam's expression didn't change. "Doesn't surprise me. Some men fail upward no matter what they've done." The official story is that he exceeded his authority, went rogue. Tyson pulled out a cigar, but didn't light it, rolling it between his fingers instead. "Unofficially, I've been told to ask about certain documents he was pursuing, the Beckworth papers. So, they do exist." Tyson's eyebrows rose. "There are some very nervous people in Washington right now, Sam. People who'd prefer certain aspects of the war stay buried." "As they should," Sam agreed. "The past has teeth enough without digging up more reasons for old hatreds." Tyson studied him, weighing his next words carefully. "These people, they've authorized me to offer you a deal. The papers in exchange. For, shall we say, a clean slate, your record expunged. The bounties from Texas and Arizona withdrawn." "There are still bounties?" Sam asked, genuine surprise in his voice. "2 that were never officially cancelled. Small ones, by your standards, but enough to cause trouble if someone decided to pursue them." Sam was quiet for a moment, watching as Clayton was led from the jail to the prison wagon. The former major's eyes found his across the street, burning with undimmed hatred. "And if I said I don't have the papers," Sam asked finally, "then the deal disappears," Tyson replied, "and those nervous people in Washington might decide you're more of a liability than an asset." "Threatening me, Lawrence? Warning you," the marshal corrected. "As a courtesy between old acquaintances. There are wheels turning here bigger than both of us." Sam leaned back in his chair, his face unreadable. "What about Packer?" "He turned on Clayton, helped us in the end. Thomas Packer will face charges, but his cooperation will be noted." Tyson finally lit his cigar, puffing it thoughtfully. "Might get a reduced sentence. Might even walk free eventually, depending on what else he's willing to share." From down the street came the sound of raised voices. One of Reed's men was resisting being loaded into the wagon, requiring 2 deputies to restrain him. The commotion drew a crowd of townspeople, eager for more drama to feed the gossip mill. "This town will never look at you the same way again," Tyson observed, following Sam's gaze. "The quiet stage driver is gone forever. All they'll see now is the pallbearer." "Maybe," Sam agreed. "Maybe not. You really think you can stay here, go back to driving stages after all this?" Before Sam could answer, a figure appeared at the corner of the doctor's house, a young boy of perhaps 12, clutching a wooden toy stagecoach. He hesitated, staring at Sam with wide eyes. "It's all right, Billy," Sam called softly. "Did you bring it for me to fix?" The boy nodded, approaching cautiously and holding out the toy. One of its tiny wheels had come loose. "My pa says you killed 20 men," the boy blurted, unable to contain his curiosity. "Your pa shouldn't be telling you such things," Sam replied, taking the toy and examining the broken wheel. "Especially when he doesn't have his facts straight." "So you didn't kill 20 men?" Sam met the boy's gaze directly. "I've done things I'm not proud of, Billy. Made choices I wish I could take back. That's why I drive stages now, instead of carrying a gun for a living." "But you still have a gun," the boy insisted. "Ma says you're the fastest drawer in the territories." "Being fast with a gun isn't something to admire," Sam said quietly, reattaching the wheel with practiced precision. "Being careful with people's lives, that's worth admiring." He handed the repaired toy back to the boy, who took it with a mixture of awe and uncertainty. "Thank you, Mr. Kincaid." "Sam," he corrected. "Just Sam." As Billy ran off to show his repaired toy to his friends, Tyson chuckled. "Diplomat as well as gunfighter. You've picked up some new skills. Had a good teacher." Sam nodded toward the doctor's office where McAllister was recovering. "About my offer," Tyson pressed. "The papers for a clean slate. It's more than fair." Sam rose from his chair, looking out over the town, at Martha, efficiently managing the stage preparations, at the children playing despite the excitement of the prisoner transfer, at the ordinary life he had built here over 3 years. "The Beckworth papers are in a safety deposit box," he said finally. "First National Bank of Denver, box 447. Tyson's eyebrows rose. All this time, they were just sitting in a bank? "Hiding in plain sight," Sam agreed, "where no one would think. To look for Confederate secrets and lost gold." "And the key?" Sam reached into his shirt pocket and extracted a small brass key on a leather cord. "Been wearing it around my neck for 5 years. Never took it off, even in the bath." Tyson accepted the key with a solemn nod. "You understand what this means? These papers implicate people on both sides, some still in positions of power." "I know exactly what it means," Sam replied. "It means the past stays where it belongs. The dead can rest easier, maybe the living too." "Including you?" Tyson asked, pocketing the key. Sam didn't answer directly. "What Clayton said about Catherine, was it in Beckworth's report? The truth about who killed her?" Tyson's face softened slightly. "I never saw the full report, Sam, but I did hear rumors that you might have been mistaken about who was responsible, that you carried blame that wasn't entirely yours to bear." "She still died," Sam said quietly, "because of her association with me." "Perhaps." Tyson stood, preparing to leave. Or perhaps she died because violent men do violent things, and sometimes innocent people get caught in between. Not everything that happens in this world is about you, Pallbearer. The use of his old moniker brought Sam's head up sharply. Don't call me that. Not anymore. Fair enough, Tyson conceded. For what it's worth, I think driving a stage suits you better than gunfighting ever did. You were too thoughtful for that life, saw too many angles, considered too many consequences. Robert said the same thing when he found me in that cantina. Sam looked toward the doctor's office. Said I was wasting a good mind on a bad path. Smart. A man, your sheriff. Tyson held out his hand. I'll make sure those bounties are taken care of. You have my word. They shook hands as equals, two men who had seen the worst of the frontier but chosen different ways to tame it. What will you tell your superiors? Sam asked. About the papers? That I've secured them and they'll be transported to Washington under guard. Tyson smiled slightly. What happens after that? Well, stagecoaches can be robbed, documents can be lost, fires happen. Sam nodded, understanding the implied assurance. Good luck, Sam, Tyson said, descending the steps. Hope you find what you're looking for. Already did, Sam replied. Just trying to keep hold of it now. As Tyson walked toward the jail to speak, with McAllister, Martha approached from the direction of the stage station. Her face was drawn with worry. The eastbound stage just arrived, she said without preamble, brought the newspapers from Denver. She handed Sam a folded newspaper. The headline sprawled across the front page in bold type, Return of the Pallbearer. Legendary gunman resurfaces in Colorado territory. Beneath it was an artist's rendering of Sam, surprisingly accurate for someone who had never seen him, drawing his gun against a group of outlaws. The accompanying article painted him as a mythic figure, exaggerating both his exploits and his body count. They're calling you the Ghost of Justice, Martha said, attempting a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Says here you've killed 35 men. That accurate? Not even close, Sam replied, folding the paper without reading further. The stage brought something else, too. Martha held out a telegram. This came for you. Station manager said it arrived yesterday, marked urgent. Sam opened the yellow paper, reading the brief message. Word of your resurrection spreading stop. Fletcher brothers heading your way. Stop, they swore, to kill the man who took down Jericho Crane. Stop, get out, while you can stop an old friend. He folded the telegram carefully and tucked it into his pocket. Bad news? Martha asked, though her expression suggested she already knew the answer. Depends on your perspective, Sam replied. For the Fletcher brothers, definitely bad news. Sam, Martha's voice took on an edge of desperation. You need to leave. Today, the stage heading east has room. Marshal Tyson could ensure safe passage. Running never fixed anything, Martha. It's not running, it's living. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Every gunman with something to prove will be coming for you now. Every bounty hunter who doesn't believe the bounties are lifted. Every outlaw with a grudge. The Fletcher brothers are different, Sam explained. They're not just gunmen. They're killers who enjoy their work. If I leave, they'll still come to Copper Creek. They'll still look for me, and they'll hurt anyone they think might know where I've gone. Martha's face paled. How many? 3 brothers, Zeke, Caleb, and John. Mean, as snakes and twice as venomous. And you've encountered them before? Sam's expression darkened. They rode with Jericho Crane for a while. Weren't there at Black Mesa when I took him down. They've been looking for me ever since. Then let Marshal Tyson handle it, Martha insisted. That's his job. Tyson's good, but he can't be everywhere, and the Fletchers won't come through the front door announcing themselves. They'll sneak in, get the lay of the land, find leverage. Leverage? Sam's eyes met hers directly. People I care about. The implication hung in the air between them, unspoken but unmistakable. I should fetch the doctor, Martha said finally, breaking the tension. He'll want to know about this, As she turned to go, Sam caught her arm gently. "Martha, I'm sorry for bringing this to your door." "You didn't bring it," she replied, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "It would have found you eventually. Men like you, the past doesn't let go easily. I'm not that man anymore. I know." Her expression softened. "That's what makes this all the more unfair." As Martha went to find Doc Wells, Sam walked to the edge of the porch. The prisoner wagon was now fully loaded, Clayton and Reed secured inside along with their men. The Blackburn brothers sat stoically, while young Parker stared out at the town with hollow eyes. Only Reed maintained his arrogant demeanor, smiling at onlookers as if he were the guest of honor at a parade. Tyson emerged from the doctor's office, pausing when he saw Sam's expression. "Problem?" the marshal asked, climbing the steps to rejoin him. Sam handed him the telegram without comment. Tyson read it, his face growing grave. "The Fletcher brothers," he muttered. "Nasty pieces of work. You know them?" "Know of them. They've managed to stay just on the edges of the law, enough to avoid serious pursuit, but everyone knows what they are." Tyson handed the telegram back. "When are they likely to arrive?" "Soon," Sam replied. "Word travels fast in certain circles." Tyson stroked his mustache thoughtfully. "I could delay my departure, leave a couple of deputies, and make bigger targets of everyone here." Sam shook his head. "The Fletchers need to believe I'm alone. Vulnerable. That's a dangerous game, Sam. It's the only one they understand." Tyson studied him, concern evident in his weathered features. "You're not as fast as you were 5 years ago. None of us are." "I don't need to be as fast," Sam replied. Just faster than them." The marshal sighed, recognizing the determination in Sam's stance. "At least let me leave you some extra ammunition. Maybe a shotgun or two." "I appreciate the offer, but no. Anything unusual will tip them off. You're really planning to face 3 professional killers with just your sidearm and wits." "Worked so far," Sam said with a hint of his old smile. Before Tyson could respond, Doc Wells emerged from his office, his face tight with concern. "Sam, Marshal, Robert's asking for you both." Inside the doctor's small but immaculate office, Sheriff McAllister lay propped up on a narrow bed. His normally robust frame seemed diminished, his skin still carrying the waxy pallor of a man who had walked to death's door and back. But his eyes were clear and alert as they entered. "Lawrence," he greeted the marshal with a nod. "Been along. On time?" "Too long, old friend," Tyson replied, taking the seat beside the bed. "You look terrible." "Feel worse," McAllister grimaced, "but I'll live, thanks to Sam and the doc here." His eyes shifted to Sam, who stood somewhat apart, his posture suggesting a man ready to leave at a moment's notice. "Martha told me about the Fletcher brothers," McAllister said, without preamble. "Said you're planning to face them alone." "No. Other way to handle it," Sam replied. "There's always another way," McAllister insisted, wincing as he tried to sit up straighter. "That's what I've been trying to teach you for 3 years. Some men can't be reasoned with, Robert. The Fletchers aren't coming to talk." "Then leave," McAllister urged. "There's nothing keeping you here. The stage line has stations all over the territories. You could transfer, start fresh, and bring this down on some other unsuspecting town." Sam shook his head. "No, it ends here." McAllister exchanged a glance with Tyson, who nodded slightly. "Sam," the sheriff said carefully, "I know what happened in Fort Griffin, what really happened." Sam went very still. "What are you talking about?" "Before I came to Copper Creek, I worked for the Pinkerton Agency," McAllister explained. "Was assigned to investigate a series of murders along the Texas border. Catherine Chambers was one of them." The color drained from Sam's face. "You knew all this time?" I knew who you were the moment you applied for the stage driver position, McAllister confirmed. Knew your history, your reputation, and yes, I knew about Catherine. Why didn't you say anything? Because I also knew you weren't responsible for her death, McAllister said quietly. The Wallace brothers killed her, just like Clayton said. It had nothing to do with you or your past. She was targeted because she testified against their brother the year before. Sam turned away, his shoulders rigid with tension. You should have told me. Would you have believed me? McAllister asked. Or would you have thought I was just trying to ease your conscience, manipulate you into staying on the straight path? When Sam didn't answer, McAllister continued, his voice growing stronger. I wanted you to find peace on your own terms, Sam, to build a life because you chose it, not because someone handed you absolution you weren't ready to accept. And now? Sam asked, still facing away. Why tell me now? Because you need to understand. Something before you face the Fletchers, McAllister said, his voice taking on an urgency that made both Sam and Tyson turn toward him. You're not fighting to atone anymore. You're fighting to protect what you've built here, a life worth living. The sheriff's words seemed to hang in the air, settling around Sam like a weight, or perhaps lifting one from his shoulders. Catherine's death wasn't your fault, McAllister repeated. But what happens next? That's entirely in your hands. Doc Wells, who had been listening silently from the doorway, stepped forward. Robert needs rest. This excitement isn't good for his recovery. Just a moment more, Doc, McAllister insisted. Sam, I need to know, what are you planning to do about the Fletchers? Sam was quiet for a long moment, his face unreadable. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a clarity it had lacked before. I'm going to give them what they want, he said. A chance to face the Pallbearer. That's suicide, Tyson interjected. 3 against 1, and they'll be gunning for blood. I didn't say I'd face them on their terms, Sam replied, a hint of his old strategic thinking emerging. The Fletchers want a legend. I'll give them one, but legends have a way of being more and less than the stories suggest. McAllister studied him, then nodded slowly. You have a plan. The beginnings of one, Sam acknowledged. But I'll need help. Not with the fighting, he added quickly, seeing the protest forming on both men's lips, but with the preparation. Tyson and McAllister exchanged glances. What do you need? The marshal asked. First, I need you to take your prisoners and leave. Make it clear to everyone that law enforcement is moving on. Sam began to pace, his mind working through the strategy. Second, I need to speak with Packer before he goes. There are things he knows about the Fletchers that could be useful. And third, McAllister prompted. Third, Sam paused, his expression hardening, I need to make sure the people of Copper Creek stay clear of what's coming. This isn't their fight. It became their fight the moment the Fletchers decided to target you here, McAllister argued. These are good people, Sam. They won't abandon one of their own. I'm not one of their own, Sam countered. I'm just a stage driver who's brought trouble to their door. Is that really what you think? The sheriff's voice was gentle but insistent. After 3 years, after everything you've done for this community. Before Sam could answer, Martha appeared in the doorway, her face tense. Sam, there's someone here to see you. Says his name is Gabriel Fletcher. The room went still. Gabriel, Sam repeated, genuine surprise in his voice. There's no Gabriel Fletcher. That's what he calls himself, Martha replied. Said you'd want to hear what he has to say. He's waiting at the stage station. Sam and Tyson moved simultaneously toward the door. Wait, McAllister called after them. Sam, remember what I said. You're not fighting for redemption anymore. You're fighting for a future. Sam paused at the threshold, looking back at the wounded sheriff who had given him a second chance 3 years ago. I know, he said quietly. That's what scares me. With that, he stepped out into the afternoon sun, his hand automatically checking his gun as he prepared to face a ghost from a past that refused to stay buried. The man who called himself Gabriel Fletcher stood beside the water trough at the stage station, feeding an apple to his dappled grey horse. He was younger than Sam expected, perhaps 30, with wheat-coloured hair and the lean build of someone who spent most of his life in the saddle. Unlike the typical frontier roughneck, he wore a tailored black suit that seemed more appropriate for a banker or lawyer than an outlaw. Only the well-worn gun belt at his hip betrayed his true profession. As Sam approached, flanked by Marshal Tyson, Gabriel looked up with a smile that didn't reach his pale blue eyes. "Mr. Kincaid," he greeted, his voice carrying the refined cadence of Eastern schooling. "Or do you prefer Pallbearer? I'm never certain about the etiquette in these situations." "You seem to have me at a disadvantage," Sam replied, stopping a cautious distance away, "since there is no Gabriel Fletcher among the brothers I know." "Quite right." The man tossed the apple core aside and wiped his hands meticulously on a handkerchief. "Gabriel Fletcher is a name of convenience. My real identity would only complicate matters." Tyson's hand edged toward his sidearm. "State your business, mister, plain and direct." Gabriel's eyes flicked dismissively over the marshal before returning to Sam. "I represent certain interests who have been monitoring the situation here with great attention. The recovery of the Beckworth papers, Clayton's arrest, the revelation of your colorful past. All most fascinating developments." "These interests have names?" Sam asked. "None that would mean anything to you." Gabriel straightened his already immaculate cuffs. "Suffice it to say, they're people who prefer the past remain properly buried." "The papers are secure," Tyson interjected. "Being transported to Washington under my authority." Gabriel's smile widened slightly. "Yes, I'm aware of your arrangement with Mr. Kincaid, a clean slate in exchange for decades-old secrets. Quite the bargain." The implication that he knew the details of their private conversation sent a chill through Sam. Either Gabriel had been eavesdropping or his interests had sources in places they shouldn't. "What do you want?" Sam asked directly. "To deliver a warning." Gabriel's pleasant demeanor turned serious. "The Fletcher brothers, the real Fletcher brothers, will arrive in Copper Creek by sunset tomorrow. They've made certain embellishments to their usual approach, given your reputation, meaning they won't be riding in alone." Gabriel produced a small notebook from his coat pocket, consulting it with theatrical precision. "My information indicates they've recruited 7 additional gunmen. Professional manhunters mostly, with a few border trash mixed in for volume. 10. "Against 1, Tyson muttered. "Cowards." Gabriel shrugged elegantly. "The Fletchers have never prioritized fair play. They're businessmen in their way. Efficiency matters more than honor." "And you're telling me this out of the goodness of your heart?" Sam asked, skepticism evident. "I'm telling you because my employers prefer you alive rather than dead." Gabriel tucked the notebook away. "The incident with Clayton has drawn unwanted attention to matters best left in shadow. Your death at the hands of notorious outlaws would only intensify that scrutiny. So your interests want to protect me?" Sam's voice carried open disbelief. "Hardly." Gabriel laughed softly. "They simply recognize that your death would create more problems than it would solve. The legend of the pallbearer carries weight. Martyrs cast longer shadows than living men." He reached into his coat slowly, mindful of Tyson's watchful eye, and withdrew an envelope. "Inside you'll find the names and descriptions of all 10 men coming for you, along with their known tactics and weaknesses. Consider it a professional courtesy." Sam made no move to take the envelope. "And the price for this courtesy?" "Simply this." Gabriel's voice dropped lower, forcing both men to lean in slightly. "When the dust settles, regardless of who remains standing, certain items from Clayton's personal effects must disappear. A journal, specifically, small, bound in red leather with no distinguishing marks." "What's in this journal?" Tyson demanded. Nothing that concerns the United States Marshal Service, Gabriel replied smoothly. Personal observations, primarily, but potentially inflammatory if they fell into the wrong hands. And if I refuse? Sam asked. Gabriel's pleasant mask slipped, for just a moment, revealing something cold and calculating beneath. Then my employers will be forced to take a more direct approach to contain potential damage, an approach that would likely involve not just you, but anyone connected to you. Sheriff McAllister, the good doctor, Mrs. Sullivan. The implicit threat hung in the air between them. You're threatening innocent people, Tyson growled. That's a quick way to find yourself in irons, mister. I'm merely outlining consequences, Gabriel corrected, his mask of civility firmly back in place. My employers prefer subtle solutions, but they are not sentimental about methods when necessary. Sam finally took the envelope, tucking it inside his vest. I'll consider your offer. That's all I ask. Gabriel stepped back, preparing to mount his horse. One more thing. The Fletcher brothers believe you killed their younger brother at Black Mesa along with Jericho Crane. That's why they've been hunting you these past 5 years. I didn't, Sam stated flatly. There was no Fletcher among Crane's men that day. Indeed. Gabriel swung gracefully into his saddle. Their brother Michael was traveling to join Crane's gang when he encountered a Union Army patrol. There was a misunderstanding, shots were fired, and young Michael ended up dead, the patrol leader. A former associate of yours, who witnesses described as the Pallbearer's right hand. The Fletchers, being somewhat limited in their thinking, transferred the blame to you. Ellis, Sam said quietly, a name he hadn't spoken in years. Frank Ellis, the very same. Gabriel settled his hat precisely on his head. The Fletchers don't know they're chasing the wrong man, and they wouldn't care if they did. The legend makes a better target than the footnote. With a tip of his hat, Gabriel turned his horse and rode unhurriedly down the street, the picture of a gentleman out for a casual ride. That man's more dangerous than any 10 gunfighters, Tyson observed, watching him go. You believe his warning about the Fletchers? Yes. Sam tapped the envelope against his palm. About his employers and their interests? That requires more thought. They walked back toward the doctor's office, both men lost in contemplation. This journal, he mentioned, Tyson said finally. Any idea what it might contain? Clayton documented everything, Sam replied. Names, dates, operations, both official and otherwise. If he kept a personal journal, it could implicate people at the highest levels of government, Tyson finished. People who might prefer those implications never see daylight. Sam nodded grimly. Which makes our mysterious Gabriel more dangerous than he appears. Men like that don't make empty threats. As they reached the doctor's porch, Martha emerged, her face drawn with tension. What did he want? She asked without preamble. Sam hesitated, weighing how much to reveal, but Tyson answered for him. Seems the pallbearer has an even bigger reception. Committee coming than we thought. 10 guns instead of 3. Martha's face paled. 10? That's not a fight, it's an execution. Not if we're smart about it, Sam replied, his mind already working through possibilities. The Fletchers want a legend. We'll need to use that. We? Martha's voice carried equal parts hope and fear. I can't ask anyone to stand with me, Sam clarified, but I need information, preparation, eyes and ears. I need to get these prisoners to Fort Laramie, Tyson said, conflict evident in his expression. Can't delay much longer without raising questions. I'm not asking you to stay, Sam assured him. In fact, it's better if you go. Take all official law enforcement with you. Make it clear to everyone that Copper Creek is temporarily without protection. Baiting a trap, Tyson nodded slowly. You want them overconfident. Exactly. Sam turned to Martha. When the marshal leaves, I need you to spread word that I'm planning to run, that I'm taking the evening stage out tomorrow. Make sure it reaches the saloon, the general store, anywhere strangers might overhear. Martha's eyes widened with understanding. You want them to make their move at the stage. Station. On ground I know, Sam confirmed. At a time I choose. It could work, Tyson conceded, but you're still vastly outnumbered. Sam tapped the envelope Gabriel had given him. Knowledge is its own weapon, Marshal, and surprise counts for a lot. Inside the doctor's office, they found McAllister awake and alert, Doc Wells checking his bandages with professional efficiency. How bad? The sheriff asked as soon as they entered. 10 guns, Sam replied without preamble. Coming tomorrow at sunset. McAllister's face darkened. Cowards. Strategic, Sam corrected. The Fletchers want to make sure. They're not risking failure, not after 5 years of searching. What about our visitor? McAllister asked. Gabriel, or whatever his real name is. Sam and Tyson exchanged glances, silently debating how much to share with the wounded sheriff. He's connected, Sam said finally. Government, maybe? Or wealthy? Private interests. Someone with resources and reach. And he's offered to help. McAllister's tone suggested he already knew the answer. At a price, Sam confirmed. There's a journal among Clayton's possessions, something powerful people don't want found. Doc Wells, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. Clayton's personal items are in my surgery cabinet. Everything they took from him when he was jailed. He hesitated, including a small red leather book. All eyes turned to the doctor in surprise. You've had it all this time? Tyson asked. Standard procedure with prisoners, Wells defended. Sheriff brings their personal effects to me for safekeeping, prevents accusations of theft or tampering while they're in custody. Sam's mind raced. Have you looked at it? Doctor-patient confidentiality. Wells replied primly, even for prisoners. But his professional demeanor cracked slightly. I may have noticed it contains extensive entries about operations outside official channels. Names, dates, locations of meetings. A blackmailer's treasure, Tyson muttered. No wonder our friend, Gabriel, wants it. The question is, McAllister interjected, struggling to sit up straighter, what do we do with it? The room fell silent as each man considered the implications. The journal represented both danger and opportunity, leverage against powerful enemies, but also a target painted on whoever possessed it. We don't decide now, Sam said finally. First, we deal with the Fletchers. Then we'll determine what serves justice best. Agreed, Tyson nodded. I'll need to leave within the hour to maintain our schedule to Fort Laramie. Sam, what do you need from me before I go? Take Clayton and his men as planned, Sam instructed. But leave Reed and his gang here under Doc's supervision. Too injured to travel safely, he added with a meaningful look. Medical necessity. Tyson caught on immediately, giving the impression of reduced vigilance. Smart. Marshal, McAllister called, as Tyson turned to leave. There's a storage room behind my office. Gun cabinet with the town's emergency arms. The keys in my desk, top right drawer. Robert, Sam started to protest. 10 against 1 are fool's odds, even for the Pallbearer. McAllister cut him off. I'm not asking anyone to fight your battle, Sam, but I won't let you face this without proper tools. Sam wanted to argue, but saw the determination in McAllister's eyes. After a moment, he nodded. Thank you. As Tyson left to arrange the prisoner transfer, Doc Wells moved to his cabinet and removed a small, leather-bound book with no markings on its cover. I should put this somewhere safer than my surgery, he said, holding the journal as if it might bite. Given what we now know about its importance, give it to Martha, Sam decided after a moment's thought. No one would think to look for it with her. Martha accepted the journal with obvious reluctance. What do I do with it? Hide it well, Sam advised, and if things go badly tomorrow— He hesitated. If things go badly, McAllister finished for him, get on the first stage out and take it to Judge Wilson in Denver. He'll know what to do with it. Martha nodded, tucking the journal into her skirt pocket. I should get back to the station. The afternoon stage needs preparing, and apparently I have rumors to spread about your imminent departure. As she left, Sam turned to Doc Wells. "I need to speak with Packer before they take him. Can you arrange it?" "He's in the back room, under guard," Wells replied. "I'll tell the deputy you're checking him for travel fitness." Left alone with McAllister, Sam paced the small room, his mind working through tomorrow's confrontation step by careful step. "You're planning something specific," McAllister observed, "something beyond just facing them at the station." "The Fletchers are coming for the Pallbearer," Sam replied, stopping at the window to survey the town. "So that's who they'll find, meaning sometimes the legend is more powerful than the man." Sam turned back to face his friend. "And sometimes that's exactly what you need." McAllister studied him, understanding dawning. "You're going to use your reputation against them." "It's the one advantage I have," Sam confirmed. "Fear, uncertainty. The Fletcher brothers have spent 5 years building me into something more than human in their minds. We can use that. Psychological warfare." McAllister nodded appreciatively. "But it won't stop bullets." "No," Sam agreed, "but it might make those bullets miss their mark long enough for mine to find theirs." The sheriff shifted uncomfortably. In his bed. "I should be out there with you." "You'd be dead before you cleared leather," Sam said bluntly. "That bullet didn't just nick you, Robert. You need weeks of recovery, not a gunfight." "Then find others to stand with you," McAllister insisted. This town owes me nothing," Sam cut him off, "and I won't have more blood on my hands. Not for my past, not for my mistakes." "This isn't about your past anymore," McAllister argued. "This is about now, about the life you've built here, about protecting people who care about you." Sam was saved from responding by Doc Wells's return, with Thomas Packer in tow, a deputy hovering watchfully at the door. Packer's hands were cuffed before him, but he carried himself with dignity, despite his prisoner status. His grizzled face registered. "Surprised at seeing Sam Kincaid," he greeted cautiously. "Doc says you wanted to see me." "I need information about the Fletcher brothers," Sam said without preamble. "Everything you know." Packer glanced at the deputy, then back to Sam. "What do I get in return?" "A chance to do the right thing for once," McAllister interjected from his bed. "Maybe balance the scales a little." Something like shame flickered across Packer's weathered features. He sighed heavily, then nodded. "The Fletchers are methodical," he began. "Not just killers, planners. They study their targets, learn patterns, weaknesses. They'll have been watching this town for days already, through field glasses from the ridges probably." "Go on," Sam encouraged. "They prefer to separate their target from potential allies first. Create distractions if necessary. Fires, fake emergencies, anything to divide attention and forces." Packer's expression grew grimmer. "And they're not above using innocence as leverage. Women, children, means nothing to them if it serves their purpose." Sam's jaw tightened. "What about their fighting style, tactics?" "Zeke, the oldest, he's the strategist. Stays back, coordinates, never puts himself at risk until the outcome's certain." Packer shifted his cuffed hands uncomfortably. "Caleb's the silent hunter. Uses terrain, shadows, prefers a rifle to a handgun. Can take a man's eye out at 300 yards. And John, he's the wild card. Young, vicious, enjoys the work too much. Gets in close, makes it personal." Packer hesitated. "He uses a knife as often as a gun, likes to mark his victims." Sam absorbed this information, adding it to what Gabriel's envelope might contain. "How do they typically approach? All at once?" "Staged. Depends on the target," Packer replied. "For someone with your reputation, they'll come cautious, probe for weaknesses, probably send their hired guns in first to wear you down or flush you into a prepared position." "Where Caleb's waiting." "With a rifle," Sam concluded. "Exactly." Packer nodded, a grudging respect in his eyes. "You're thinking like them already. That's good." Sam turned to the window again, watching as Tyson's men prepared the prison wagon for departure. The pieces of tomorrow's confrontation were falling into place in his mind, A deadly chess game where the stakes couldn't be higher. One more thing, he said, turning back to Packer. How do they handle fear? The question seemed to catch Packer off guard. Fear? The Fletchers don't scare easy. Everyone fears something, Sam pressed. What unnerves them? What makes them doubt? Packer thought for a moment. Then a slow smile spread across his face as he understood Sam's direction. Superstition, he said finally, especially John. Their mother was half-Creek Indian, filled their heads with spirits and omens. John won't walk under a burial tree, won't kill an owl, carries a medicine pouch he thinks makes him bulletproof. And the others? Less obvious about it, but they have their rituals. Zeke won't fight without his father's old cavalry gloves. Caleb notches his rifle stock before each kill, says if he doesn't mark it first, the shot will go wide. Sam nodded, filing away these details. Thank you, Thomas. Packer hesitated, then asked quietly, Do you really think you can take all 10 of them? I think, Sam replied carefully, that 10 men coming to kill one creates certain opportunities, confusion, crossfire, mistrust. Divide and conquer, McAllister murmured from his bed. Turn their numbers against them. Something like that, Sam agreed. The deputy at the door cleared his throat. Marshal says it's time, Packer. Wagon's ready. As Packer turned to leave, he paused. Kincaid, if you make it through tomorrow, what then? This won't end with the Fletchers. Men like Gabriel and his interests. They don't just walk away. One battle at a time, Sam replied. First the Fletchers, then we'll see what's left to fight about. Packer nodded, accepting this. As the deputy led him away, he called over his shoulder, Watch the younger brother, John. He'll try to make it personal, get under your skin. Don't let him. After Packer was gone, Doc Wells secured the door and turned to Sam, with worry evident in his features. You should get some rest. Before tomorrow, he advised. I can give you something to help you sleep if needed. No, Sam declined. Need to keep my mind clear. My reflexes sharp. McAllister struggled to sit up straighter, wincing with the effort. Sam, there's something we haven't discussed. What happens after, if you survive this? When, Sam corrected. Automatically. When I survive this. All right, when, McAllister conceded. What then? The stage company won't keep you on. Too much risk now that your identity is public. Every hothead looking to make a name will be drawn here like flies to honey. Sam had been avoiding this particular reality, but he couldn't deny the truth in McAllister's words. His quiet life as a stage driver was gone, regardless of tomorrow's outcome. I don't know, he admitted. Haven't thought that far ahead. You could take a badge, McAllister suggested, gesturing to his own star lying on the bedside table. God knows you've got the qualifications. Tyson would back your appointment. A gunfighter turned lawman. Sam shook his head. That rarely ends well for anyone. You're more than just a gunfighter, McAllister insisted. You've proven that these would pass 3 years. Before Sam could respond, a commotion outside drew their attention. Martha's voice could be heard, raised in unusual agitation. Doc Wells opened the door to find her on the porch, arguing with Lily Turner, the music teacher. What's going on? Wells demanded. Lily wants to evacuate the children, Martha explained, frustration evident in her voice. Wants to take them on tomorrow's morning stage to Fort Laramie. It's just a precaution, Lily defended, looking past. Martha, to where Sam stood in the doorway. Mrs. Sanderson heard about the Fletcher brothers coming. Word spreading through town. People are frightened. Sam stepped onto the porch, his expression grave. Mrs. Turner, taking the children might be wise, but not tomorrow. Not on the morning stage. Why not? Lily challenged. It's the safest. Because. That's exactly when the Fletchers will be watching the station, Sam explained gently. Looking for me, looking for movement, looking for leverage. Understanding dawned in Lily's eyes, followed by fresh fear. You think they'd use the children? I think we shouldn't give them the opportunity, Sam replied. Keep the children indoors, tomorrow, all day, away from windows. Tell the parents to stay home too, if possible. Lily hesitated, torn between fear and trust. How can you be so calm? 10 men are coming to kill you. 10 men have tried before, Sam said, meeting her gaze steadily. I'm still here. Something in his quiet confidence seemed to reassure her. After a moment, she nodded. I'll tell the parents. Keep the children home. She turned to go, then paused. Be careful, Mr. Kincaid. Despite what you may think, you matter. Do people hear? As she walked away, Martha turned to Sam with a pointed look. See, not just a stage driver to them anymore. Sam didn't respond, his attention caught by the setting sun, painting the western mountains in shades of blood and gold. Somewhere out there, the Fletcher brothers were making their final preparations, gathering their hired guns, planning his death. Tomorrow, they would come for the pallbearer. And the pallbearer would be waiting for them. But as he watched the light fade from the sky, Sam Kincaid found himself wondering which version of himself would greet the dawn after, the legend, born in blood, or the man who had found something worth living for beyond the speed of his draw. Dawn broke over Copper Creek with unnatural silence. No shopkeepers swept their boardwalks, no children raced to school, no stage teams clattered down the main street. The town held its breath. Windows shuttered, doors barred against the coming storm. Sam stood alone in his small room above the livery stable, methodically preparing for what lay ahead. He had slept surprisingly well, not the fitful rest of a man facing death, but the deep slumber of one who had made peace with whatever might come. On the rough-hewn table before him lay the tools of a trade he had abandoned years ago: gun oil, cleaning cloths, spare ammunition. His movements were precise as he checked the action on his Colt, the revolver disassembled and reassembled with practiced efficiency. The weapon was an extension of himself, familiar as his own hand. From the envelope Gabriel had provided, 10 hand-drawn sketches were arranged in a neat row. He had memorized each face, each name, each weakness noted in the meticulous descriptions. Knowledge was indeed a weapon, perhaps the most powerful one he possessed. A soft knock at his door broke the silence. "It's open," he called, not looking. Up from his work, Martha entered, carrying a tray with coffee and biscuits. Her eyes took in the displayed sketches, the cleaned weapon, the man preparing for battle with methodical calm. "You should eat something," she said, setting down the tray. "Keep your strength up." "Thank you." He accepted the coffee, noticing she'd prepared it exactly as he preferred, black with a hint of molasses. "Town's quiet," Martha observed, moving to the window. "Like a graveyard." "Good. Fewer innocents in the crossfire." Martha turned from the window, studying him with unusual intensity. "You've changed since they came. Since Clayton. You're different." "Not different," Sam corrected gently. "Just revealed, like a boulder after a flood. It was always there, just hidden beneath the surface." "I liked the stage driver," she said softly. "So did I." He holstered his gun with a decisive click. "But he wouldn't survive today." Martha's eyes fell on the sketches. "These are them, the men coming for you?" "Yes, the 3 Fletchers and their hired guns." He indicated each sketch in turn. Zeke Fletcher, the oldest, strategist; Caleb, the middle brother, expert marksman; John, the youngest, unpredictable, dangerous at close quarters. And the others? Hired killers mostly. 2 are professional bounty hunters. The rest are desperados looking for reputation or reward. His finger tapped one particular sketch. "This one concerns me most. Elijah Quinn, former cavalry sharpshooter, can hit a playing card at 400 yards. Martha shivered despite the morning warmth. "How do you fight men like that?" "By understanding them, by knowing that men who hunt in packs have different fears than those who hunt alone." Sam rose, buckling on his gun belt with practiced ease. "By remembering that fear is contagious, especially when blood starts to flow. You make it sound so calculated. It has to be. He checked his pocket watch. The Fletchers are planners, remember? They'll have mapped every approach, noted every vantage point. My only advantage is they expect the Pallbearer, a legend, not Sam Kincaid, who spent 3 years studying the rhythms of this town, the angles of its buildings, the shadows that stretch across its streets at different times of day. Martha began gathering the breakfast dishes, her movements betraying her nervousness. Doc Wells says Robert's fever broke during the night. He's more lucid this morning. Good. He should stay inside, away from windows. He's asking for you. Says there's something important he needs to tell you before... She trailed off, unable to complete the thought. Sam nodded, understanding. I'll stop by on my way to the station. Marshal Tyson left a package for you, Martha added, producing a small parcel wrapped in oilcloth. Said it might even the odds a bit. Sam unwrapped it carefully to reveal 2 small, oddly shaped metal devices he recognized immediately. Flash bombs, he murmured, turning one over in his hand. Army issue. Tyson must have requisitioned them for fugitive apprehension. What do? Create a blinding flash and deafening bang when thrown against a hard surface. A ghost of... A smile touched his lips. Useful for creating confusion among multiple opponents. Martha watched as he tucked the devices into his vest pockets. There's something else, she said, her voice taking on an unusual hesitancy. I need to show you something. At the station. Something in her tone made him look up sharply. What is it? Better I show you. She moved to the door. Meet me there after you see Robert and Sam. She paused, one hand on the doorframe. Don't keep us waiting too long. After she left, Sam finished his preparations, checking his equipment. One final time before donning his worn canvas duster. The coat had served him well during countless stage journeys through rain and snow. Today it would serve a different purpose, concealing his weapon until the crucial moment. The walk to the doctor's office took him down Copper Creek's deserted main street. Without people, the town felt like an abandoned stage set. Buildings standing silent witness to the drama about to unfold. Sam noted defensive positions, lines of fire, potential cover, mapping the battlefield with a veteran's eye. Doc Wells met him at the door, medical bag in hand. I'll be at the saloon, the doctor said without preamble. Central location, good view of the street. Figured that's where most of the casualties will end up anyway. Sam nodded appreciation for the doctor's pragmatism. How's Robert? Improving. Still weak, but fever's gone. He's lucid. Wells hesitated. Sam, about today. I've seen enough death to last several lifetimes. Try not to add to my count if you can help it. I'll do my best, Sam promised, though both men knew how little that might mean before day's end. Sheriff McAllister was propped up against his pillows when Sam entered, his face still pale, but his eyes clear and alert. His badge rested on the bedside table alongside a loaded Remington revolver. You look better, Sam observed, taking the chair beside the bed. Feel better. Doc says I might live after all. McAllister studied Sam's face. You're ready. It wasn't a question, but Sam nodded. Anyway, as ready as circumstances allow. Martha told me about your visitor yesterday, Gabriel, and his interests. The sheriff's expression darkened. Sounds like you've stumbled into something bigger than local justice. Seems that way, Sam agreed. But first things first. The Fletchers won't wait while we untangle political conspiracies. About that, McAllister reached for a glass of water, wincing slightly at the movement. I've been thinking about your approach. 10 against 1, even with surprise and preparation, those are still terrible odds. I'm open to suggestions, Sam said, surprising himself with the admission. 3 years ago, the pallbearer would have rejected advice, certain of his own deadly skills. 3 years of driving stages had taught him the value of other perspectives. The Fletchers are coming for a legend, McAllister said, echoing Sam's earlier thoughts. So give them one, but not the one they expect. Sam leaned forward, Intrigued. Go on. The pallbearer they're hunting is a solitary killer, a man who works alone. But what if that's not who shows up today? McAllister's eyes took on a strategic gleam. What if, instead of one man standing against 10, they find something else? Entirely. Understanding dawned on Sam's face. A trap. More than that, McAllister corrected. A performance. Theatre. The kind of story that would spread across territories, growing with each telling. The legend reborn, Sam murmured, but on different terms. Exactly. McAllister struggled to sit up straighter, enthusiasm giving him strength. The Fletchers expect the pallbearer they've heard about for years. Give them something new, something that will shatter their expectations, make them doubt everything they think they know. Sam considered this, turning the concept over in his mind like a chess problem. It could work. Create enough uncertainty. Even professionals hesitate. And hesitation, McAllister finished, is all you need. A plan began to form in Sam's mind, building on what Martha had hinted at earlier. Robert, I need to get to the station. Martha's waiting to show me something. McAllister nodded, then reached for his badge on the nightstand. Take this. Sam stared at the offered star. I'm not a lawman. Today you are, McAllister insisted. By my authority as county sheriff, consider yourself deputized. A badge won't stop bullets. No, but it changes what people see when they look at you. Not a gunfighter settling personal vendettas, but the law protecting its own. McAllister pressed the badge into Sam's hand. Sometimes symbols matter more than we think. After a moment's hesitation, Sam pinned the badge to his vest, concealing it beneath his duster for now. The weight of it felt strange against his chest. A responsibility different from, yet somehow similar to, the weight of his. Gun, thank you, he said simply. Just come back alive so I can have it back, McAllister replied gruffly. Good badges are hard to come by in these parts. As Sam turned to leave, McAllister called after him. Sam, about Catherine? The name still held power, even after all these years. Sam paused at the door. It wasn't your fault, McAllister said, softly. And it wasn't Clayton's. Sometimes tragedy just happens, and there's no justice to be found, no matter how many men you hunt. Sam's shoulders tensed, then relaxed, as he absorbed the truth of these words. I know. Took me a long time to accept it, but I know. Then fight today for the living, McAllister urged. Not the dead. With a nod of acknowledgement, Sam left, the sheriff's words echoing in his mind as he made his way toward the stage station. Bishois. Morning had advanced, sunlight now illuminating the town's empty streets with harsh clarity. In a few hours, that same sunlight would expose every movement, every misstep in the deadly dance to come. Sam walked with unhurried purpose, instinctively staying close to buildings, minimizing his profile, old habits resurfacing naturally. Martha was waiting at the stage station as promised, but she wasn't alone. To Sam's astonishment, nearly 20 people had gathered inside. Shopkeepers, ranchers, farmers, all armed with an assortment of weapons from shotguns to hunting rifles. Jim Taggart from the livery stood at their center, his ancient Sharps rifle, cradled in gnarled hands. Beside him, young Billy's father clutched a cavalry carbine, its brass fittings polished to a mirror shine. "What is this?" Sam demanded, directing his question to Martha. "Copper Creek takes care of its own," she replied simply. Taggart stepped forward, speaking for the group. "We heard what's coming. 10 killers against one man doesn't sit right with us." "This isn't your fight," Sam protested. "Became our fight when they targeted our town," Billy's father countered. "I was at Shiloh, Mr. Kincaid. Saw what happens when good men stand aside, because the fight isn't theirs." Sam looked around the room, taking in each determined face. These weren't gunfighters or trained lawmen, just ordinary people standing, up for what they believed was right. "You don't understand what you're volunteering for," he said, his voice carrying an edge of urgency. "These men are professional killers. They won't hesitate to shoot anyone who stands in their way." "We understand just fine," Taggart replied. "Question is, do you? You've been part of this town for 3 years, drove stages through blizzards to bring medicine when the fever hit, helped rebuild the schoolhouse after the fire, never asked for thanks, never expected recognition." Martha stepped closer. "You keep saying this isn't our fight, but you're one of us now, whether you accept that or not." Sam felt something unexpected tighten in his chest, a sensation he hadn't experienced since before Catherine's death. Belonging, community, the very things he had convinced himself he could never have again. "I can't ask this of you," he said finally. "You didn't ask," Martha pointed out. "We're offering." Sam surveyed the group again, strategic assessment replacing emotional reaction. These weren't trained fighters, but they knew the town intimately. "With proper positioning, clear instructions, and enough surprise, if we do this," he said slowly, "we do it my way. No heroes, no last stands. You follow orders precisely, even if that means watching and waiting while others act." Nods of agreement circled the room. "And understand this clearly," Sam continued, his voice hardening. "The Fletchers won't be coming to arrest anyone or make speeches. They're coming to kill. If you stand with me, you need to be prepared to do what's necessary." A solemn silence fell as his words sank in. These people were farmers and shopkeepers, not killers. The reality of what lay ahead seemed to register on their faces. After a long moment, Taggart spoke again. "We understand, Mr. Kincaid. We're still here." Sam nodded, accepting their resolve. "Then let's make a plan." For the next hour, the stage station transformed into a tactical headquarters. Sam used chalk on the wooden floor to sketch a map of the town, marking key positions, lines of sight, and potential approaches. "The Fletchers will have studied the town," he explained, indicating the surrounding ridges. "They'll have spotters in place already, watching movement. Caleb Fletcher will position himself here." He marked an X on the ridge east of town, with a clear line of fire to the station. "Quinn, their sharpshooter, will probably take the church steeple or the roof of the mercantile." "How can you be so sure?" someone asked. "Because it's what I would do," Sam replied simply. "High ground, good visibility, multiple escape routes." He assigned positions to each volunteer, emphasizing concealment and patience. "Don't show yourselves until the signal. The Fletchers need to believe I'm alone and vulnerable. Their confidence is our advantage." "What's the signal?" Billy's father asked. Sam tapped his vest pocket where Tyson's flash bombs rested. "You'll know it when you see it. Trust me on that." As the volunteers dispersed to their assigned positions, Martha pulled Sam aside. "There's one more thing," she said, leading him to the station office. "Something I've been working on since yesterday." Inside, spread across her desk, lay what appeared to be theater props. A black duster, identical to Sam's old one from his Pallbearer days. A false mustache, hair dye. "I saved these from the traveling show that came through last fall," Martha explained. "The one that did that melodrama about frontier legends." Sam picked up the duster, noting the careful stitching meant to evoke his signature look from years past. "They did a show about the Pallbearer." "Death Rides the Western Wind," Martha confirmed with a slight smile. "Dreadful production, but they had good costumes." Understanding dawned on Sam's face. "McAllister's performance, the legend reborn." "Exactly." She gestured to the items. "The Fletchers are hunting a ghost. Let's give them one." As the sun climbed higher, Sam completed his transformation. The theatrical duster replaced his canvas one, its longer cut and dramatic styling creating a silhouette instantly recognizable to anyone who had heard the stories. The false mustache and hair coloring, carefully applied by Martha's steady hands, restored his appearance to that of the legendary gunfighter of 5 years ago. Standing before the small mirror in Martha's office, Sam barely recognized himself. The stage driver was gone, replaced by the spectre of the pallbearer in his prime. The effect was unsettling, like stepping back into a skin he had shed long ago. "It's remarkable," Martha said, studying her handiwork. "Like looking at a wanted poster come to life." "That's the idea," Sam replied, adjusting the badge now prominently displayed on his chest, the final touch to the performance about to unfold. "The Fletchers want the pallbearer. Let's make sure they get exactly what they're asking for." By noon, the transformation was complete. Not just of Sam, but of Copper Creek itself. What appeared to be an abandoned town was now a carefully prepared battlefield. Behind shuttered windows and closed doors, defenders waited in strategic positions. Sam had assigned each volunteer a specific task, a precise moment to reveal themselves, creating a choreographed response designed to maximize confusion and doubt among the attackers. Sam checked his pocket watch. "They'll come at sundown." Classic. Ambush timing. Attacker's eyes adjusted to the darkness, defender blinded by the setting sun. "How will you counter that?" Martha asked. "By changing the rules of engagement," Sam replied. "The Fletchers expect me to be defending, reacting. Instead, I'll be hunting them." Martha studied him, concern evident in her expression. "Even with everyone's help, the odds are still against you." "Odds are just numbers," Sam said, checking his weapon one final time. "What matters is position, timing, and will." He holstered his gun with fluid grace, the movement so natural it seemed almost choreographed. And as Robert reminded me, what men believe can be more powerful than what they see. As the afternoon shadows lengthened across Copper Creek's empty streets, Sam Kincaid, or perhaps the pallbearer, stood alone on the stage station porch. To any observer watching from the surrounding ridges, he appeared solitary and exposed, a man awaiting his fate with grim determination. But appearances, as the Fletcher brothers would soon discover, could be deceiving. Behind the performance, about to unfold, lay a deadly skill honed through years of survival, tempered by wisdom, and now, for the first time, directed toward protection rather than vengeance. The stage was set, the actors in position. All that remained was for the Fletchers to make their entrance and discover that the legend they had hunted for so long had evolved into something far more dangerous than even the stories suggested. The first sign of the Fletcher brothers' arrival came not as gunfire or thundering hooves, but as a preternatural stillness that settled over Copper Creek like a shroud. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath, the usual evening breeze dying away, as if nature itself sensed the coming violence. Sam stood alone on the stage station porch, silhouetted against the setting sun. His transformed appearance, the theatrical black duster, the carefully styled features reminiscent of wanted posters, created the perfect bait for the trap about to be sprung. To any observer watching from the surrounding hills, he appeared the very embodiment of the legend they sought, the pallbearer, waiting to face his executioners with solemn resolve. Behind the facade of abandonment, Copper Creek waited. Behind, shuttered windows and closed doors, defenders held position, weapons ready, breath steady. The stage was set for a performance none would forget. Sam's heightened senses detected them before they showed themselves. The subtle shift of a shadow on the church steeple, the faint reflection of sunlight on a rifle barrel at the eastern ridge, the almost imperceptible creak of a board as someone moved across the roof of the mercantile. The Fletchers had positioned their men exactly as he'd predicted, establishing a crossfire that would cut down anyone attempting to flee the stage station. His hand brushed against the flash bombs in his pocket, confirming their presence. Not yet. Timing would be everything. Movement at the edge of town caught his attention, a lone rider approaching slowly, deliberately, down the center of the main street. The man rode with careless confidence, making no attempt at concealment. His duster was trail-worn but of good quality, his hat pulled low to shield his face from the setting sun. A silver concho gleamed on his hatband, an unnecessary flourish that spoke of vanity. Zeke Fletcher, the eldest brother. The strategist. Sam remained motionless on the porch, allowing Zeke to approach unchallenged. From his peripheral vision, he detected two more riders emerging from side streets, flanking their brother at a distance. John Fletcher to the right, lean and predatory in movement, and a heavy-set man Sam recognized from Gabriel's sketches as Harley Dunn, one of the hired guns. Where was Caleb, the middle brother? Still on the ridge with his rifle, Sam surmised. The sharpshooter would stay back until needed, providing coverage while his brothers sprung the trap. Zeke reined his horse to a stop 30 yards from the stage station, just beyond comfortable pistol range. He studied Sam for a long moment, taking in the transformed appearance, the badge gleaming in the late afternoon sun. "Samuel Kincaid," he called, his voice carrying the hint of an educated southern drawl. "Or do you prefer Pallbearer these days?" Sam remained silent, allowing the tension to build. Inside the station, he knew Martha was watching through a crack in the shutters, ready to relay signals to the other defenders. Zeke's mouth twisted in a humorless smile. "Not feeling talkative? That's disappointing. I'd hoped for at least a few memorable last words to carry back to civilization." Still, Sam offered no response, his stillness a provocation in itself. "5 years we've hunted you," Zeke continued, irritation creeping into his voice. 5 years, following rumors and ghost stories across 3 territories, and here you are at last, wearing a tin star like it might protect you. John Fletcher circled wider to the right, attempting to flank the station. The youngest brother moved with predatory grace, his features sharp and hawkish beneath his wide-brimmed hat. Unlike Zeke's calculated approach, John's posture radiated barely contained violence. "My brother Michael," Zeke called. "Do you remember him? Or was he just another notch on your gun?" Finally, Sam spoke, his voice carrying clearly across the distance between them. "I never met your brother, Fletcher. Never killed him either." Surprise flickered across Zeke's face, quickly replaced by anger. "Liar! Witnesses saw your man Ellis gun him down at Black Mesa." "Frank Ellis wasn't my man," Sam replied evenly. "He was a Union Army scout who sometimes rode the same territory. We weren't friends, weren't partners. The stories got it wrong." "Convenient denial," Zeke sneered, though uncertainty had crept into his expression. 5 years too late." "Truth doesn't care about timing," Sam said. "Your brother died because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, riding to join Jericho Crane's gang when they were being hunted by the army. It was a military patrol that killed him, not me or mine." John Fletcher's patience snapped. "Enough talk," he shouted, his hand dropping toward his gun. "He's stalling." "Hold, John!" Zeke commanded, raising his hand in warning. "Something's not right." The youngest Fletcher froze, his hand hovering near his weapon. His eyes, wild with hatred, never left Sam. "Smart," Sam acknowledged, addressing Zeke. "Your brother's right about one thing. I am stalling. Question is, why would a man facing 10 guns stall for time?" The implication hung in the air between them. Zeke's eyes narrowed as he scanned the seemingly deserted building surrounding the stage station. "There's no help coming," Zeke stated, though doubt had crept into his voice. "Marshall left with his prisoners this morning. Sheriff's at death's door. Town's abandoned." "Is it?" Sam asked simply. In that moment of uncertainty, he made his move. In one fluid motion, his hand dipped into his pocket, extracted one of Tyson's flash bombs, and hurled it to the ground between Zeke and John Fletcher. The device exploded in a blinding flash and deafening report that echoed through the street like cannon fire. Horses reared in panic, throwing John Fletcher from his saddle. Zeke managed to keep his seat, but was momentarily blinded, cursing as he clawed at his eyes. The signal given, Copper Creek erupted into action. A shotgun blast from the general store took down Harley Dunn before he could recover from the confusion. On the church steeple, the concealed gunman revealed himself prematurely, panic overriding training, as he fired wildly toward the stage station. Sam was already moving, diving from the porch as a rifle shot from the eastern ridge. Caleb Fletcher splintered the wood where he had stood moments before. He rolled behind a water trough, using the momentary chaos to assess the changing battlefield. On the roof of the Mercantile, Quinn, the ex-cavalry sharpshooter, had recovered faster than his companions. His rifle tracked Sam's movement with professional precision. Sam caught the glint of sunlight on the barrel just in time, throwing himself sideways as the shot kicked up dirt inches from his position. "Behind the livery!" Zeke Fletcher shouted, having regained enough vision to direct his men. "Flank him!" Two of the hired guns broke cover from a side street, running toward the livery as ordered. They never made it. Jim Taggart's ancient Sharps rifle barked from a second-floor window of the hotel, dropping one man with a shot through the shoulder. The second hesitated, torn between continuing his charge and helping his wounded companion. That moment of indecision cost him dearly as Billy's father fired from his position in the barber shop, the cavalry carbine's report adding to the growing cacophony. John Fletcher had recovered from his fall, scrambling for cover behind a rain barrel, his face contorted with rage as he realized the trap they had walked into. "It's an ambush," he screamed, firing blindly toward the stage station. "The whole damn town's in on it." Meanwhile, Caleb Fletcher maintained his position on the ridge, his rifle seeking targets with methodical patience. Unlike his impulsive younger brother, Caleb understood the value of discipline in chaos. His next shot shattered a window in the hotel, forcing Taggart to duck for cover. Sam used the precious seconds of confusion to reposition, darting from the water trough to the shadow of a freight wagon abandoned near the stage station. From this new vantage point, he had a clear line of sight to the church steeple, where one of the hired guns was struggling to reload his rifle. Sam's Colt barked once, the shot striking the steeple just beside the gunman's head. Not a miss, a warning. The man froze, then slowly raised his hands in surrender, his rifle clattering down the church roof to the street below. "One down!" Sam called out, his voice carrying to the defenders throughout the town. The message was clear. Surrender was an option. Zeke Fletcher had dismounted, taking cover behind a rain barrel opposite his younger brother. The eldest Fletcher's face betrayed confusion, turning to fury as his carefully orchestrated ambush unraveled. Around him, "Quinn!" he shouted to the sharpshooter on the Mercantile roof. "Take him!" Quinn's rifle zeroed in on Sam's position, but before he could fire, a shotgun blast from Doc Wells's position in the saloon forced him to duck behind the roof's false front. The tide was turning, but Sam knew better than to grow complacent. The most dangerous moments in any firefight came when wounded adversaries grew desperate, and the Fletchers, seeing their advantage evaporate, were rapidly approaching that point. John Fletcher proved this theory correct almost immediately. With a banshee howl of rage, he abandoned his cover and charged directly toward Sam's position, firing as he ran. His attack was suicidal, born of frustration rather than strategy, but no less deadly for its recklessness. Sam remained calm, timing his response with practiced precision. As John closed the distance, Sam rose from behind the wagon and fired twice in rapid succession. The first shot struck John's gun, sending it spinning from his grasp. The second caught his leg, dropping him to the street in a cloud of dust. "Stay down!" Sam ordered, his gun trained on the fallen Fletcher. John spat blood, his hand moving to the knife concealed in his boot. "Go to hell, Pallbearer!" Before either man could act further, a rifle shot from the ridge kicked up dirt inches. From John's reaching hand, Caleb Fletcher's warning to his own brother was unmistakable. "Stay still, or die. The middle Fletcher brother was proving himself the most dangerous of all, patient, precise, and tactically sound. While his brothers and their hired guns had fallen into the trap, Caleb maintained his disciplined position, controlling the battlefield from his elevated vantage point. Sam had anticipated this. It was time for the second phase of the plan. "Martha, now," he called toward the stage station. On cue, Martha Sullivan emerged from the station office, but she wasn't alone. To the astonishment of everyone watching, particularly the Fletchers, she was escorting a bound prisoner at gunpoint, Gabriel, the mysterious agent who had delivered the warning the previous day. "Cease fire!" Martha shouted, her voice carrying surprising authority. "We have one of yours!" Confusion rippled through the remaining gunmen. Gabriel wasn't part of their company, but the Fletchers couldn't know that. To them, it appeared one of their own had been captured before the fighting even began. Zeke Fletcher's expression reflected his mental calculation, weighing the value of an unknown associate against the rapidly deteriorating situation. "Who the hell is that?" he called to his brother on the ridge. Caleb's only response was to keep his rifle trained on the tableau before him, his disciplined, patience unbroken. Martha nudged Gabriel forward. The elegant agent played his part perfectly, his normally composed features registering appropriate distress. "Tell your men to throw down their weapons, Fletcher," Sam called to Zeke. "This has gone far enough." "That man isn't one of ours," Zeke replied, though doubt tinged his voice. "Never seen him before." "Really?" Sam countered. "Then why did he arrive in town yesterday with detailed information about your plans? Why did he know exactly when you'd be coming and with how many men?" This revelation hit Zeke like a physical blow. His eyes darted to Gabriel, then back to Sam, uncertainty evident in his expression. "He's lying, Mr. Fletcher," Gabriel called, improvising brilliantly. "I was sent to negotiate terms, not to betray you." The seed of doubt planted in Zeke's mind began to grow. If this stranger knew his name, knew their plans, then some connection must exist, perhaps through the men who had hired them for this job. Taking advantage of this confusion, Sam implemented the final stage of his strategy. He stepped out from behind the wagon, fully exposing himself in a move of calculated risk. "Caleb Fletcher," he called, addressing the distant rifleman directly. "Your brothers are down. Your hired gun's dead or surrendered. It's over." Through his peripheral vision, Sam spotted movement on the mercantile roof, Quinn repositioning for a clear shot. Before the sharpshooter could fire, Billy's father's carbine cracked again, forcing Quinn back under cover. "This doesn't end until you're dead, Pallbearer," Zeke called, desperation edging his voice. "You killed our brother." "I didn't kill Michael Fletcher," Sam replied, his voice carrying across the dust-filled street with calm authority. "But I know who did." This claim froze everyone, defenders and attackers alike. Even John Fletcher, bleeding in the street, grew still at these words. "The man who shot your brother was Captain William Drummond, 4th Cavalry," Sam continued. "He's stationed at Fort Laramie now. I have witnesses who'll testify to it, military reports confirming it." "Lies," John shouted from his position on the ground, but doubt had crept into even his rage-filled expression. "The truth," Sam countered, "which is why I'm still wearing this badge." He tapped the sheriff's star on his chest. "Law says you're entitled to justice for your brother's death. Real justice, not vengeance against the wrong man." Silence descended on Copper Creek as the Fletcher brothers absorbed this revelation. 5 years of pursuit, of hatred directed at a phantom enemy, now called into question in the space of a few sentences. The moment balanced on a knife's edge, violence could still erupt with the slightest provocation. Sam maintained his exposed position, gambling that Caleb's disciplined nature would prevent him from firing while doubt lingered. It was Caleb who broke the impasse. The middle Fletcher brothers' rifle barrel elevated slightly, not surrendering, but no longer targeting. "Sam, directly. What proof do you have?" Caleb called, his voice carrying clearly from the ridge. "Military dispatch in the sheriff's office," Sam replied. "Official report of the incident. Michael was given warning before they fired. He chose to draw instead." Another long silence followed as the brothers communicated through glances and subtle gestures, the unspoken language of men who had ridden together for years. Finally, Zeke spoke. "If what you say is true, if you can prove our brother's death was legal action and not murder, then you've spent 5 years hunting the wrong man," Sam finished for him, "and spilled blood today over a mistake." The implications of this settled heavily on the Fletcher brothers. Their quest for vengeance, the driving force behind 5 years of their lives, threatened to collapse under the weight of new information. "Throw. And down your weapons." Sam pressed his advantage. "Face legal charges for today's attack. I'll personally ensure the evidence about Michael's death is presented at your trial." John Fletcher, despite his wounds, managed a harsh laugh. "So we can hang anyway. What difference does it make?" "The difference," Sam replied, "is that no more lives need to be lost today, including yours." On the mercantile roof, Quinn had reached his own decision. Seeing the way the wind was blowing, the professional gunman quietly retreated toward the back of the building, seeking escape, while attention remained focused on the confrontation below. His movement caught Martha's eye. "Roof!" she shouted in warning. Sam reacted instantly, but before he could fire, a shot rang out from Doc Wells' position in the saloon. Quinn staggered, clutching his arm, his rifle tumbling to the street below. "That's a flesh wound," Doc Wells called matter-of-factly. "Next one goes through your heart if you move again." With Quinn neutralized, the remaining hired guns recognized their situation as untenable. 2 raised their hands in surrender, emerging slowly from their positions around the street. Only the Fletcher brothers remained defiant, Zeke behind his rain barrel, John bleeding in the street, and Caleb watching, impassively from the ridge. "It's finished," Sam said quietly, addressing Zeke directly. "You're surrounded, outgunned, exposed. Make the smart choice." A tense moment passed as Zeke measured their options. His gaze traveled from his wounded brother to the surrendering gunman, to the various townsfolk now emerging from buildings with weapons trained on the remaining resistors. Finally, with deliberate slowness, Zeke Fletcher removed his gun belt and let it fall to the ground. "Caleb," he called to his brother on the ridge, "stand down." For a breathless moment, it seemed the middle Fletcher might refuse. Then, with the same disciplined precision that characterized everything he did, Caleb uncocked his rifle and raised it vertically to signal compliance. As if a spell had been broken, activity erupted throughout Copper Creek. Doc Wells rushed to attend to the wounded, starting with John Fletcher despite the youngest brother's continued curses and threats. Martha escorted Gabriel, no longer needed as a hostage, back into the stage station under guard. Townspeople emerged from their defensive positions, expressions mixing relief with disbelief at what they had accomplished. Sam approached Zeke, Fletcher cautiously, keeping his gun ready but no longer aimed directly at the man. "Your brothers need to come down now," he said quietly. "All weapons surrendered." Zeke nodded, exhaustion evident in his features. "It's over, Pallbearer, or Kincaid, whoever you really are." "Just a stage driver," Sam replied, "who got tired of running from ghosts." As Copper Creek slowly returned to life around them, Sam supervised the surrender and securing of the remaining attackers. Caleb Fletcher descended from the ridge with dignified resignation, surrendering his rifle with the respect one professional shows another. John, despite his wounds, continued to spit threats and curses until Doc Wells administered a sedative that finally silenced him. By sunset, the Fletcher brothers and their surviving hired guns were secured in the jail, their wounds treated, their futures uncertain, but no longer ending in bloodshed this day. Sam stood on the porch of the sheriff's office, watching as the town digested what had transpired. The theatrical black duster now hung open, The false mustache removed, his transformation. Back to Sam Kincaid nearly complete, only the sheriff's badge remained, gleaming in the last rays of sunlight. Martha approached carrying a cup of coffee which she offered silently. Her own ordeal, playing hostage-taker to a potentially dangerous agent, had left her pale but composed. "Gabriel?" Sam asked, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Gone," Martha replied. "Slipped away during the confusion after the surrender. Left this, though." She handed Sam a folded note. The message was brief. "Until our next performance, Mr. Kincaid, my employers send their regards and consider our business concluded for now. The journal is yours to use as conscience dictates." Sam folded the note and tucked it away. One battle concluded, another postponed. "Quite a day," Martha observed, surveying the town as it slowly returned to normal. "I suspect Copper Creek will never be the same." "No," Sam agreed. "Neither will I." "What happens now?" she asked, the question encompassing far more than just the immediate future. Before Sam could answer, Sheriff McAllister appeared in the doorway behind them, leaning heavily on a cane. His face was pale with exertion, but his eyes were clear and determined. "You should be in bed," Sam admonished, moving to support his friend. "Couldn't miss seeing how it all turned out," McAllister replied, easing himself onto a chair. "Besides, I heard someone's been wearing my badge." Sam unpinned the star and offered it back to its rightful owner. "Just borrowed it, as requested." McAllister didn't take it immediately. Instead, he studied Sam with thoughtful eyes. "Might look better on you permanently." "Robert, before you refuse," McAllister interrupted, "consider this. The Pallbearer. You died today, for good this time. But Sam Kincaid, the man who organized a town's defense against overwhelming odds, who offered enemies a chance to surrender even after they came to kill him, that man could do a lot of good wearing a badge." "I'm a stage driver," Sam protested, though with less conviction than before. "Were," Martha corrected gently. "The stage line's already sent a telegram. They're regretfully terminating your employment due to security concerns." Sam absorbed this news with a nod. He'd expected as much. "Telegraph came for you too," Martha added, producing a yellow envelope. "From Marshal Tyson." Sam opened it, reading aloud. "Kincaid, stop heard about Fletcher situation, stop position. Open for deputy, U.S. Marshal Territorial Division. Stop badge. Waiting if you want it. Stop Tyson." He folded the telegram thoughtfully. "Seems I have options." "You always did," McAllister said quietly. "Just couldn't see them before." As night fell over Copper Creek, lamps were lit in windows that hours earlier had been darkened in fear. The sounds of life returned to the streets, voices calling, doors opening, even laughter as tension released in waves of relieved celebration. Standing there between Martha and McAllister, watching the town he had protected come back to life, Sam Kincaid felt something he had thought forever lost after Catherine's death, a sense of possibility, of future, of belonging. The pallbearer was gone, laid to rest among the legends of the West. In his place stood a man who had found something worth far more than reputation or revenge, a community that had stood with him when it mattered most. "Think I'll sleep on those offers," Sam said finally, handing McAllister's badge back to its owner. "No rush to decide." "No rush at all," McAllister agreed, pinning the star back on his own chest with a wince. "You've earned some peace." As Martha returned to the stage station and McAllister limped back inside to rest, Sam remained on the porch, watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of the past lift from his shoulders, not forgotten, but finally allowed to rest. Whatever tomorrow might bring, today had proven one thing beyond doubt. Some battles were worth fighting, not for vengeance or reputation, but for the simple right of good people to live in peace. And that was a cause Samuel Kincaid, stage driver turned reluctant hero, could embrace without reservation. The legend was dead. The man lived on. And in Copper Creek, both would be remembered long after the dust of today's confrontation had settled back into the earth from which it came.
Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.